had been. We had a big man. And the cookie crumbled or began crumbling because of the big man. So it becomes factional
exit
fights.
the big man, and
Yes,
then
it was
now
Jomo.
you have issues.
Yes. So actually what happens is you must look at development from the perspective that, Eric, actually what you are now is a developed product of a long line of things that happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And freedom, what it does, it helps you actualize that.
Yeah.
So your education, for example. So when we say kizungujingi, I mean, the person who normally articulates good English very, very easily is CT here, right? But you
I bet
see,
you didn't know that.
But you see, let me tell you what happens. So development is normally seen as what, these little shiny objects, roads, hospitals, schools. No.
That's not development. Thank you. Preach.
Development is a human person.
Preach.
Is you rising to be the best you can be, right? And therefore, that's what we say, that when we free you through giving you education, through giving you healthcare, through giving you... So whenever I see these statistics that were developed because we built N kilometers of road, I say, but where are the people?
We're actually underdeveloped. If based on your definition, we may have infrastructural development, but we're
But as a
underdeveloped
people,
as a
we are
people.
Which is why we call them white elephants.
Underdeveloped.
Explain the underdevelopment, though.
So underdevelopment is a people who are not actualizing their true potential. It's that simple. So true potential means, and again, using Gini whatever figures and GDP, those are all indicators. But the best one is to look at the state of the people.
The state of the country.
Yeah, the state of the people. So we can have the biggest hospitals, yet people are dying every day.
Okay.
As someone told me, you can have the biggest bed, but have no sleep.
That's true.
Today.
You can have the biggest bed, but no sleep.
So what you're saying, Mugambi, in essence is this, that freedom equals access.
Freedom is not equals.
Is.
So part of freedom is access. Part of it. The other part is you then actualizing that access to do something.
Yes. So where the big man syndrome then comes in is everything revolves around the big man.
There you go.
So you don't really have access.
No.
And the access is on someone else's terms. But what we're referring to is access on your terms, on terms that are agreeable to you.
To you.
And not necessarily with any untoward influence.
Yes. And remember where we came from, which was the state. When they said the original state, which was mean, which was brutal,
Restrictive.
Yes, which was... And we formed society so we can, as a community, find ourselves into those paths, right? So the idea is where my right stops, where my development stops, is where her nose starts, right? So all this is where I'm free. The rest we must negotiate. If I need to touch her, I have to negotiate, and that's why we talk about even for female bodies, it is their right. You can't buy that.
So in essence, again, we are saying that when we looked at what happened in the 1990s in this country, we then had something very unique, access to dissent.
Yes.
Meaning,
protest, yes.
Yes, the freedom to say, no, sorry, I don't like what I'm seeing, and I'm going to show you why I don't like it.
There you go.
And I'm going to action it.
And that was development. That was a key part of our development now.
What you're then saying is that in the 90s, if you use that as a ballpoint, we were thriving.
Trust me, we were boiling, incandescent, effervescent. It was, again, I grew up, I'm a child of the 90s.
Yes.
I'm a child of the human rights movement. I have never enjoyed myself as much. In fact, when Angela asking me about my dreadlocks, it comes from a phase where that the culmination of that was NAC, right?
The National Rainbow Coalition.
Remember, NARC. Within 18-24 months, what are we saying? Nothing actually really changed. Remember that? Why? Suddenly we realized, this haki yetu, it had owners. We sang about KICC. Suddenly, KICC was back to jostling. I think for a lot of people, two things happened. One is, remember, we used to arrest police officers who were taking bribes. Suo moto, without anyone telling us anything. You see a cop, he's taking bribe, you tell him, boss, 20.
Yeah.
Big.
Or they take off and they chase.
Yes. We were doing it. We were the ones who were telling our leaders, the new dawn. And then what happened? We realized, boss, as Moi had warned us before. Kenya has its owners. And the first, for me, realization was when someone came and whispered, we went to reclaim our property, Hapa Kabarnet Gardens. And we found the title deed that had been issued by the Kibaki government through Mr. Kimunya. And we realized, yeah. And before long, my friend John Gidongo was in trouble. Now some people who are saying Fagia every day were the ones who are using others who are ministers.
People turned.
The politicians showed us really who they were. By the time the late Michuki was telling us, you don't need constitutional change. We are in power.
Yeah.
We is there, master.
We needed it when we were not in power, but now that we're in power, we don't need it.
We don't need it.
George Orwell, in Animal Farm, I keep on saying, literature is...
that's the most poignant book.
We miss the point when I hear some people saying that you don't need literature and history, and he told us a long time ago.
Yeah.
When we started saying 2 legs good, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. That's what we were doing. You remember what we used to sing? Yote yazekana bila
Moi.
And then
Moi alisema goodbye.
Moi left.
And he said, I forgive all of you. And he forgave us. You know what he did? He laughed all his way. The other day when we were celebrating him, I asked someone, so what did we not do? He said, there's something called Moism. Moi left, Moism remained. Kenyatta, Jomo left, Jomoism remained. Kibaki is maybe the only one who's left. I'm not sure there's Kibakism. Right? But this transition, it looks like there could be
Uhuruism.
Uhuruism now coming in.
It is a real...
What is the Uhuruism? Just describe it, sorry.
Uhuruism is a different creature altogether. Uhuruism is a mix of Jomo and Moi. It's a mix of two.
The two teachers he had, actually.
Yes.
His two main teachers.
Yes. So there's Jomo who dies, again, iconic.
Yeah.
Jomo was... When someone is 15 years older than you, I don't know if you picture this, because Kenyatta Jomo, as a politician, was 2 generations ahead of everyone else, right? So when you see people spreading
everybody else worked for him,
like Charles Jonjo, and that is what someone also mentioned. People worked for Jomo. So James Gishuru used to warm a seat, and when Jomo comes from prison or from exile,
take the seat.
Right? So Jomo had this thing of the state worked for him. He did not need the party. So all these instruments were just to keep him at that. He's a monarch. He's a proper monarch. The next monarch I have seen was Moi, because Moi instrumentalized single party power, and that's what we stripped him off in the 90s. Right? And we thought, now we have got a liberal democracy. The next monarch I've seen is Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru starts off in 2002, losing badly. I repeat, losing badly. He had 31.1% of the vote.
Yep.
Kibaki had 62.2% of the vote. It's 2-1. Let me tell you, when you do 2-1 in politics, you have been smashed, you have been shattered, you have been eviscerated. That man, 10 years down the line, is our president.
Yep.
Disputed. If you remember, one of the biggest disputes in 2013 was played out in the Supreme Court, where some people have never forgiven one of my mentors, Willie Mutunga, for that ruling, right? Because there was a script that was disallowed, and we said that script had the truth, but we never saw it. We never any which way. He starts as a disputed leader, president. Right now, he's living a king. You know, he's living a king. His own deputy president is quote unquote the opposition.
Yep.
So there's no opposition there. Truly. Because you're
the leader of the opposition.
in a house you can, if you're given that karoom pale kwa SQ.
You're in the
compound. You're in the house, in the compound.
Yeah.
The guy who's your best friend and now your brother is supposed to be the guy taking you on. You're sharing access to everything perhaps, but the utensils are... So the man has no opposition. So when you tell him that he's going to declare April officially open, I say you are where Moi was, because we used to laugh. I used to play rugby, and one of the songs went about how Moi would declare the ozone layer officially open. Yeah. That was how powerful. That's how powerful he was.
But wait, let me just ask a question, taking you back to Jomoism, Moism, and so on.
Yes.
Okay. Let me be the devil's advocate here. Within those eras, the nation worked, right?
Did it?
No, I'm asking. We had development. Education systems were put in place. I feel the economy was not as
which era is this?
Whichever, whether it was the Jomo, whether it was the Moi, because I'm talking about.
So what happens is,
I just want to ask though, with this newfound freedom of voice that Kenyans have, because if I want to reference it, Rwanda is as developed as it is because Kagame had to put his foot down, and I'm sorry. I personally feel democracy doesn't always work for African nations. With all this so-called democracy, we have more chaos than ever. I would rather, as president, who does whatever he's supposed to do to ensure my life is much better. Yeah. Whether or not it is one guy for 100 years, I don't care. China works.
So
China works, and they have a...
So first of all, don't be sorry for that opinion. I faced it a lot of times. The first time I faced it actually was when Moi used to warn us that pluralism would
bring tribalism.
Look where we are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't he speak? That man was a prophet.
No. So the question was, did we not see chaos during the Moi era?
We did.
In
what
Rwanda,
chaos?
look, 1992. What was
I know.
92,
I know.
97.
I know.
97, yeah.
I know.
So the question is,
But we were never as divided as we are now.
Really?
Are you sure?
I'm asking.
No. So that's the question.
I'm playing devil's advocate here.
So I hear you. So part of it is we're not exceptional. So let's start with this. We're not exceptional. The world has a way it works. If you look at classic examples, Rwanda. So let's not use Ethiopia anymore. Ethiopia, finally that bubble burst. It burst the other day because it used to be used as one of the examples.
Yeah.
So Rwanda has actually had how many strongmen?
In its history?
When has it not had a strong man?
Very good. Now that's a good start. Now that's a good place to start. You see what happens is, as soon as you go there, and we say that Rwanda is working, so it has out of its n number of strongmen, only one. I can tell you. So what have we been doing in Kenya? Has democracy been working? Have our institutions been working? In this last era, let me ask you, where has Parliament been? Because if Parliament was actually outside being an institution where people are making noise and fighting and there's fracas, we should not have incurred that amount of debt, right? Because this small book called the Constitution of Kenya, it actually says that to manage public debt, is it under 232 when it does public finance, that Parliament must consent. Parliament is a handmaiden in the state. Why? Because what actually happened as soon as we promulgated this constitution, the first thing we did was, again, put it candle and go to our old practices. So one of the things you must understand about Jomoism and Moism is something that keeps on being referred to. It's the software. The software, our national software, remains very authoritarian. Right? So we can play this game of democracy and all that.
But it's not.
Uhuru Kenyatta is called Mudhamaki among my people.
What does Mudhamaki mean?
I was going to go
It means
there.
a savior. Yes.
Lord.
There you go. Same difference. It means, by the way, that's what it means. If you call Mutogoria, Mudhamaki, and all that, people genuflect. You are the same. You know the last person
not
was
a bad thing if he was actually
the person
saying
who was called Black Jesus of Michael Jordan. Black, by the time people call you that, they both revere you, fear you,
everything.
and there's an aura, right? And that was what Jomo. By the time he's called Mzee by Wazez, people who in our era, you don't, my own father, him who was 40 years my elder, calling another man Mzee, boss,
and he's a Mzee in his own right.
By that time, that is a serious person. In terms of just the mindset. Our mindset has always been, and you think about all our institutions, even the private ones, your family, your school, we're very authoritarian. Most likely.
That's who we are culturally.
Exactly. In the schools I went.
That's who we are. We.
Now, that's the question. Do we have our history right? Or was that the story that was told about us?
No, that's who we are.
No. Culturally, let me tell you. So the Okoh did not have
a supreme leader.
Yes, they had a council.
Many African communities had councils.
It was actually called Acephalus. It did not have one head. It's called Acephalus, which I always say now.
But there was one guy.
No.
Are you sure there was one
Angela,
guy?
The problem with our education was that it taught you what it wanted you.
Okay.
It gave us so the whole concept of the chief
Yes. The chief comes with the Muzungu.
was brought by the Mzungu.
Yes.
Yes, that's Lugard. Lord Lugard with divide and rule.
We have
He's
to
the one
level
who comes with divide and rule and says, that's your chief.
And
No,
remember, the chief
Before
was,
that
was
was-
appointed
Yes.
by the
By.
colonial government.
Thank you.
Whereas the traditional setup had
Setup
their own
own-
form of leadership.
Thank you. These two
They did.
sit, read even Jomo Kenyatta's Facing Mount Kenya. It is there in black and white. But you know, if you want to hide a secret, write a book. You want to hide a secret, write a constitution.
read, yeah.
Because people don't read it.
Yeah, of course.
So you're telling me the
Me,
Koita
that- I
Lels
think-
and all these guys only came the one advent of colonialism.
So majority, we said majority were. So there was Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu by, again,
yeah,
Yeah,
because
there's some-
in,
there's some-
in
there's some
West,
kings.
in West Africa they have got kings
Yeah.
and they have one
Exactly.
authority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even then, the king was accountable subjects.
The king was the first among equals.
Thank you.
Please.
Yes.
Remember, in a kingdom, don't go to West Africa. Let's just go to Uganda.
Uganda.
Yes. They had kings.
Yes.
But if you look at the structure, yes, you were king, but you didn't sort of like lord it over everyone.
He did not wake up one day and just...
There was a reference point.
No. And so what actually happened was that history, which you find now in our public libraries and university libraries, no one has... So what do we know on TikTok? Is the authoritarian narrative. Remember, the stories of Inisati are told by its victors. Who won after this? The Mukoloni. So as, again, I am told several times by one of my mentors, even colonialism. So the colonial government left, but colonialism did not
That's
leave.
not-
So what is what we call again the left call neo-colonialism, but I still call colonial because our thinking,
It's still
our thinking.
Remember when people talk about
Gambia
Great
preaching this
Britain, you forget these tribes. The English are the English.
Yes.
The Scots are the Scots.
Yeah.
The Irish are the
Those are
Irish. The
tribes.
Welsh are the Welsh.
Those are tribes.
Now, the English seem to have been the clever of this whole lot. Because they're the ones who went and imposed their system.
On everyone else.
On
And
everyone else.
this thing of chiefs they brought here, they had practiced it in their country.
The country.
They actually perfected
Yes,
it.
yes. So for me, when you look at Kenyatta, think of Kenyatta as inheriting and then finessing.
A structure that had
Very
been
good.
established. by
Moi coming and sharpening its fangs and talons.
hey.
Yes. And then again, I'm doing this because, as I said, when I turn 50 this year, I'm writing that book. The book which is not in text, it's in TikTok. Now, Kibaki comes, and Kibaki is again a child. Those who went to Makarari in Kibaki's time will tell you one thing. That when they were being called monkeys by the Wazungus, they gave Kibaki a first class honors. So that was the genius of a monkey.
Yes.
So Kibaki is, people look at Kibaki, they don't understand what would make a man like that in the 70s. He was among the top 10, time named world leaders or world future leaders. That's how Kibaki was. And in that space were people like Tomboya, who had been assassinated in the 60s. We had a leadership. I look at people like Kenneth Matiba as well. Jaramo. We had a leadership that did the following. That actually, had we not taken this path we took from 64, when we made KADU, when KADU was made to join KANU, if we had not taken that path, we'd actually be talking about Kenya being in the first world. Because you look at, for example, some of the development plans that we keep on saying, Singapore, who then came and borrowed, I don't know about that history, but I hear
They say Malaysia.
Yeah, Malaysia, and they say, and I don't know who and who. I'm telling you, we had software. Look at Obama's father, who dies drinking here because a lot of the things they dreamt of
were not being
neglected.
implemented.
As we then began to divide ourselves.
But they weren't fully neglected because Obama's father worked with Kibaki.
Yes.
They were in the same ministry.
Yes.
And it is argued that among the things that made that particular department work
Really well.
was this symbiotic relationship between these two individuals here.
Very good. So what actually happens to Obama's father is he sees Kibaki, Kibaki's star. Him, again, and this is where
He's
victimhood.
esteemed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, him, and again, because he's Luo. And I keep on saying, when in 2002, Gidi Gidi are singing Unbogable, and they say, can't a young Luo make
Money anymore.
They're talking about a victimhood that
Started from,
And we must be very, very clear. When Jaramogi is fighting with Kari Francis in my alma mater, because Francis is making teachers wear kaptulas. You know, people don't understand. In Kikuyu, Kikuyu town, when you're wearing kaptulas, boss, you must have hairy legs. You must have hairy. You don't know the cold. He's fighting and saying, listen, you can't do this to us. But that was what the Mzungu thought about us, and what then this ethnic thing became. That some, again, metaphorically began to wear kaptulas, whereas others wore trousers. And that's where, again, the last point about this break between Jaramogi and Jomo. Jomo's right-hand lieutenant at this point is Tomboya. Asuba, who's considered Luo. Asuba always tell you, we're not Luo. But then, everyone then says, and this was adopted as part of the narrative that Tomboya was Luo. So let's take that. Jaramogi's right-hand man was Bilal Kagia. So where is ethnicity in this?
In fact, Jaramogi's private secretary was a Chingoneko.
Yeah.
So
I keep on saying this, that this, so we have ethnicity. In fact, I look at everything that we do. So you talk about the three political chiefs we have in Kenya now. Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and William Ruto. All of them, what we call their strongholds. Your boss, your Ningome, it's an ethnic enclave.
But why have you neglected
take a break.
Kalonzo right there? Are you saying he's fighting for his space?
There are political slave kings, and then there's the political chiefs.
27 minutes
No,
to
and
8.
I am being.
We are taking a break.
I'm taking.
It's okay. It's okay. We get it.
Let me know.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
No, and let me say this before you go. No. With all respect, if I did not name you as a political chief among those three,
You're a slave king.
you need to work from being. You can work, and because William Ruto was not always a chief.
You can rise.
No, we are coming.
He has plowed the vineyards.
Yeah, you can rise. 27 to 8. Mugambi Kiai is the regional director for Article 19, Eastern and Horn of Africa. We are talking about the politics and getting to understand our politics and Article 19. Are we developing? Do we have freedoms? Are we developing our freedoms as well? Are we developing as a country economically because of the freedoms that we have or not? Angela Ngwenyi is our guest host today. Eric and City in the Situation Room. Ndu is away enjoying her Easter. We'll be back shortly.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Brought to you by Colgate.
When you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. We don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawoko?
I can't say it very well.
and everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, so the weather, how's it looking like? Nairobi, partly sunny day today at 25 and lows of 16. Mombasa, it's been raining and it's going to continue raining, light rains today. 31 highs and lows of 25. Similar thing happening in Malindi, highs of 32 and lows of 24. Nakuru City, cloudy day, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Kisumu City, partly sunny day at 29 and lows of 19. Kakamega, 24 highs and lows of 13 and mostly cloudy day. Partly sunny in Eldoret, 28 highs and lows of 16. Kampala, Uganda, sunny day at 27 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, mostly sunny day today. Highs of 32 and lows of 25. Kinshasa, clear skies at 33 and lows of 22. Lagos, light rain at 32 and lows of 23. And Johannesburg, mostly cloudy day. Highs of 17 and lows of 19. Beijing in China is sunny afternoon, highs of 23 and lows of 7 later this evening. London, clear skies at 17 and lows of 7. New York, clear skies at 11 and lows of 6. And Paris, clear skies, 19 high, low 7.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, bar accident reported at Kino 87 stage near Total petrol station. Several people reportedly injured. What's happening there? Please, if you've got more information, it's good to go onto Twitter, SpiceFMKE, and let us know what else is happening around there. But apart from that, I don't have anything else to report in terms of traffic situations around the city. People who had left the city and will be coming back to Nairobi today, so you expect that the roads will start getting slightly busy as from 11 a.m. or so as they arrive back into the city. Anything else that we ought to talk about or alert everybody else about, please tag us on Twitter at SpiceFMKE.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 22 minutes to 8.
94.4 Spice FM.
Conversation. Eric Latiff, CT Muga, our guest host today, Angela Ngwenyi, who's a PR, media and broadcast journalist, and Mugambi Kiai, Regional Director, Article 19, Eastern and Horn of Africa. Telling us Article 19 is about freedoms, freedom of expression beginning, and then other freedoms as well. So, do we have freedom of expression in the country, Mugambi?
Yes, we do. But
too much of it.
There goes Angela again.
Eh?
Imagine saying that. Just saying that. Isn't that freedom?
That is freedom.
By just intrinsically saying too much.
Implying that we just have too much.
Now, what actually happens is, yes, we do. But the
does
challenge is...
Does it not also imply that our mindset is one of totalitarianism, so that anything that goes beyond the boundaries that you have in your mind is too much?
And that's what's actually coming to CT.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was coming there because what actually happens is when we say there's too much freedom, again, as I said, from even our very nuclear institutions, our families, we were brought up. I was brought up among 8 kids, right? So there's a place where if you start saying that you don't want uji today, or you don't want githeri today, boss, either a slipper or a belt or something. So this idea of too much freedom.
To starve.
Exactly. So there's, but you see, when your parents don't feel guilty about not having persuaded you.
Yes.
When you go to school, the best I saw was school. Yeah. School, you miss something in a math paper.
You miss a step.
You miss a step. But you will not know hell's demons until that stick. So what actually happens is expression is given this very bad term where whenever we speak, and especially when we speak against what we see, which normally is the authority figure, there's a punishment to it. And the authority figure is one who sets the rules. So, as I said, when I went to high school, the one thing you were told is you take your medicine first, and then you can ask why.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're punished first, you ask why. And I said, so some of us used to ask, but but we kept to the line.
This is Alliance. Where are you going?
No, I went to Alliance. Yes. But I did not say it is you who said it.
Did you go to Alliance too?
Yes, because, you know.
No, I wasn't in a bush.
No.
You see, the development came later.
Exactly. So, and anyway, as you saw with a burning bush, you cannot consume the bush.
True.
You can burn, but you can't consume. Anyway, let me not go there because that's...
I was going to say, this is the Moses story.
Yeah, there you go. Someone who knows her Bible. Now,
calm down.
No. So too much freedom is as follows: that when I speak, as someone said, when I speak about the famine in Turkana, and I say, let's raise funds. I'm a nice guy. That is a patriot.
Yeah.
And as someone who wants
It's a noble
But when I
cause.
ask, where is there poverty?
Where is there famine in
No,
Turkana?
why is there enduring
Enduring
poverty?
poverty.
Yes.
When I say, then that is a troublemaker.
You're an activist.
Yes. And that's what we were telling Professor Magoha. That he came and said it's a human rights activist, which means dreadlock people like me, who are responsible for these kids banning schools.
Yes.
We said, boss.
No.
Boss, do you actually know what these kids do at night? They talk a language I don't understand. Through media, I can't even access. So if they buy paraffin or kerosene or whatever fuel, they're doing it among themselves. Why? Because they're tired of being locked up in institutions where they don't see sports, they don't debate each other, they don't. If you've been to an all-boys school, you've been to an all-boys school, and you're told you cannot see girls, give or take 7 days.
Give or take the odd debate.
Yeah, give or take.
Now here you're told the whole term.
Boss.
Are you about to say
And
it's a human right?
a term of how many weeks? These terms that have
But
come.
you know, he does have a point. If you look at what we
Yes,
refer
it's
to
a
as
social.
freedom of agency,
Yeah.
look at our Kenyan society and look at what the freedom of young women to go to school. Look at what it has brought about in the country.
In the country.
I'm giving that as an example. Previously, girls couldn't go to school.
There you go.
Or if you did, it was, just...
It was against the grain.
Yes, but then you normalized it.
Yes. And so you cannot blame us. You can't blame us. Let me also tell you another thing about the youth. Me, all the youth I have known, they always ban stuff. The Mau Mau were going to ban Kenya. Not B-A-N, B-U-R-N. Ban Kenya. Why? By the time you go to a forest or forests and you say we're coming to Nyonga you with your chiefs and your a certain class of and Wazungus were going to do that's what the Mau Mau did. And I was asked one thing. Did the Mau Mau even put down a proposal to go into a forest? No. When the so-called young tax, my generation now of political, the ones I saw, among them, Paul Mwite, Raila Odinga, Gitobi Manyara, James Onengo, Martha Karua, George. By the time you're a young tax, you're saying, my friends, I know tomorrow I'll be arrested. Because in most days, let's be clear, if you said a certain thing,
it was clear, it was obvious.
You knew.
You knew. Sedition, incitement, there were charges that were there that used to be there, sitting charges that were waiting for you.
Yeah.
So if you're a lawyer, most of them, what you elected to do is keep quiet and make money because it's a safe thing to do. And actually, it's not a bad life. But some actually decided, you know what? We're taking on the system. That is, you're banning. You decide, I'm going to ban. Right? When we were here stoning Moi, Yote Wezekana, on 30th December 2002, we were banning, we were saying, listen, we have banned the edifice. The palace is gone, king is gone. And we forgot, long live the king. A new one started being set up.
So if we have freedom, and you're saying, Angela is saying that we have excess freedom.
So there's a difference between freedom and anarchy. Yeah? So there's a place where you can go where there's anarchy. And I said, that's where the society's news starts. So, and I keep on trying to tell NCIC this. What you coin as hate speech, my friends, is protected. Sipangwingwi is actually protected speech.
What is Sipangwingwi, by the way? What does it mean?
Spangwingwi is a term of revolt that says you can't come and arrange me. You can't come and
you can't
keep reorganizing
me as you.
And it's a slogan for
youth. It's a youth.
You can't order me around.
Ruto has again appropriated something that was a very innocent part of youth revolt. Sipangwingwi was, listen, you didn't give us jobs. You closed us down in schools.
So
I can't in the middle class.
Basically, young person telling an older person, maisha ni yangu, we shughulika na yako.
Sipangwingwi. Yeah, a lot of new words.
Yeah, exactly. So Sipangwingwi was actually part of, and actually what's happening in Kenya, which I find very refreshing. Again, I go back to Professor Magoha. He says some things that, as he said, you can't stop with a gun. An idea whose time has come is one. This Sipangwingwi, we have discovered from the Mkoloni to Jomo to Moi we have been pangwed. And even now, the symbol of Kupangwa right now is what they're calling a state project. Yet Raila doing what we know can never be anyone's project, by the way.
Raila cannot be anybody's project?
A not starter cannot be a state project.
How do you say
Raila Odinga can be supported by someone, but Raila Odinga, even his father couldn't panga him.
Hapangwingwi?
No, even his father. Why? His father, when he gave power, he gave it to Amalwa and James Orengo, who then it became the new ethnic chief, who became the Ramogi of the Luos. James Orengo or Raila Agwambo, Tinga. And I tell people, let's be very clear about history.
But the Raila of then is not the Raila of now.
Tactics,
tactics, which is true. I mean, this is an easier way for him to get into the position
so
of power.
Is it easier really?
No. Is it as a question you ask?
It's easier because.
Is it easier?
Okay, let's argue.
Yes.
Right now, he's got the backing of the Kikuyu vote.
Are you sure?
Not really. Not really.
Everything I'm seeing.
He's got the backing. No, he's got the backing of Mudamaki. No,
yeah,
wait.
Exactly.
He has
So
the
it's got
backing
the
of
backing
Mudamaki.
of the government in power.
Yes.
The government in power.
He has the backing of Uhuru.
Mudamaki.
So?
Savior.
So do you know sometimes a king may have no clothes? Clothes normally is the people.
Yeah.
Is this one of them? That's a question we're asking ourselves right now. Because what's happening in Kenya is there's an active revolt going on, especially in Mount Mulima, Mount Kenya, against what they are seen as impoverishment.
Yeah.
Where someone said, quote unquote, Mutikago idhie, don't let me down, do not drop me. So they held him up because, trust me, 2013 and 2017 were such hot elections.
So is that going to work as a disadvantage?
And that's what we're asking
for
ourselves.
Raila.
So again, the problem with this is not social sciences are humanities. I cannot tell you until I see all the ingredients. Up to
The ingredients are in the making as we speak.
Yes.
Ingredients meaning what? Number two?
Yes, exactly. This is what I'm telling you now. People like Kalonzo, they're slickings. Why? Because Kalonzo has been was a deputy president in 2007. Deputy president, or vice president then, right? William Ruto became a deputy president in 2013.
Yes, he did.
So why would one be a principal and the other still running mate? Musalia Mudavadi was a vice president in 2002. Now he can't even make running mate in my view. So, are you seeing what I'm trying to say? That in Kenya, the following politicians actually have to work very, very hard. William Ruto has worked very hard. So has Raila Odinga. Yeah. William Ruto, unless an accident happens, a force majeure happens, will be no one's project. Ever. No one's project.
He's his own man.
His own man.
Yep.
And yellow now is a color that is his color.
Everybody, okay, so
like Kanu.
You
remember the Kanu red?
He's wearing the Ghana colors.
You remember the Kanu red?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Kanu red was a Kanu.
Yeah, you know that's Jogo. Yes. And that is Moi. We knew.
So you've declared 3 chiefs.
Yes.
Uhuru, I guess, Jomo. I mean, it was an obvious. Yeah. Raila has worked his way. Raila is one of the longest standing politicians we have.
Political.
Ruto is the new kid on the block.
Yes.
But Ruto is one of the smartest politicians in this country, in my personal opinion. I don't think anybody shines a light. Like right now.
No one is fighting that.
Now, how did he get to be a chief? Like, I'm sorry, I would think a Gideon or
to be a chief, you need people.
Yes. So what actually happened with William? Actually, we saw this. So William leaves university in 1990. A year before, the year before I joined university. At that point, people say he used to lead Christian Union and take entourages too.
Was even in a choir.
Yes, but the key is a grouping called YK92. In there he goes and he finds people who. At that point, he'd be calling Wazito, Jirongo,
people he looked up to.
Amayo, the number of them. Even this guy who was in the football, yes, Nyamwea. All of them were his bosses. And the guy, as someone said, would run errands. He was a KYM. He'd run errands. Spanner boy.
Bag boy. I heard that story.
What does he do? He asks himself, no, these ones, what is it they bring to the table that I do not have?
Yeah.
And he begins to work on them. But he's got one thing that people don't understand about William. William sees opportunities that no one ever sees. So whenever you need something, William will get it for you.
He's a guy.
He's a guy.
I know a guy.
So
he's that guy.
So when he comes as Jirongo, and I tell people you should watch this interview that Jirongo did. I think with Gashoka on Gashoka's former show on KTN. When he says, "Listen, we supplied." We said, let's support our young guys working here.
Yeah.
So we got William. He's supposed to give us 1 million T-shirts.
Yep.
So William says, I don't have the money. So I'll bring them in batches of 1,000. So he brings 1,000, takes them to the storeroom, gets the papers from the store guys, comes, presents it, gets his invoice, goes back to the storeroom and pays
It's the
guys.
same. Uh-huh.
Pays the guys, takes his 1,000 bob, his 1,000
T-shirts.
t-shirts back,
Oh.
then delivers
Brings
them
back
again. He did that for 1 million t-shirts. So Jirongo is saying, you don't understand the genius of this man.
Hence the
Right?
hustler mentality.
Yeah, and actually, when he says Jirongo Dai like me because, look at where
He was my
Jirongo is
boss.
and where I am now. I mean, I would understand even me, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what William does. William does another trick. William is a political ventriloquist in the following manner. When Moi is leaving, and as activists are saying now, give us back what is our wealth. You took. William stood and said, we Kalenjin MPs, will tell you one thing. If you touch that old man, Muguse, we are going to Teketeza. And for real, I had made Kibaki had conservative instincts, but it's the one that confirms the retreat and confirms to the Kalenjin they have a new warrior chief.
But
Gideon at that point is still playing golf.
Mugambi, polo.
Yes.
Polo. He plays polo.
Yeah, it's polo.
Not
Yes,
golf,
true.
polo.
Yep.
Hey, look at you, CT. You know.
No. He knows his sports. He knows his sports.
The thing is, that statement could make or have lent itself to some weight
Yes.
because
Yeah.
of a captive population in the Rift Valley.
Yes.
So it would make sense to Kibaki
There you go.
because the target.
Yes.
And
Of course.
yes.
Is
we
diaspora.
we have your community.
Yeah. Diaspora. And for the longest time, the political conversation in Kenya has been about that community. The political conversation about when you hear Gunjiri Wambugu said, "Tutikwederio guaya, we shall not be sold to fear." He's telling them, you guys, you think you have our guys hostage. We are not going to buy it. We're not
But
going
you
to
see,
buy.
prior to that, there's a gentleman called Chesire who had held the position
Yes,
as the MP
Timothy,
for
yeah.
Eldoret Town
Yes.
for the longest time. That is the person that William Ruto defeated.
Who was Chesire?
That was a serious man.
No. Who was Chesire? He was Moi's nephew.
Yes, a serious
Or
man.
cousin.
He wasn't just your everyday
No,
politician.
yeah.
So William
We
was
have
a
gravitas.
force to reckon with even then.
By himself.
So, I mean, going back to what you said.
Yes.
To become a chief, you
You
need,
need
people.
people.
William knows how to
Yes,
get
Moi
people.
was exiting.
Look at
Yeah.
him now.
Yeah.
Look at him
Yeah.
now. The youth population.
But I just want to say this, Mugambi.
Yeah.
Isn't it sad though we're sitting here and as Mr. Article 19 that
Yeah.
we're discussing tribal mergers?
It's the saddest
I
thing.
mean, I'm sorry. I mean, haven't we evolved to the
No,
point
we're
where
not. No, we're
Actually,
not.
we are not? So,
Let
so I
me-
should
let
sit
me
here and
disagree with both of you.
Whoever does.
We have evolved. You know why? We can talk about it openly
Yes.
and understand it for what it is. That's what it's all about.
True.
Denying that it exists, that's the joke.
And actually, for me, I always say there's a Kenya that is,
You
there's a
make
Kenya
so
that
much
ought
sense,
to
CT.
be,
Uh-huh.
or the Kenya I'd like. So, I always tell my mentor, William Mutunga, there's a Kenya I'd like to see, the Kenya that ought to be, the Kenya I want, the Kenya I'd love. There's a Kenya that is. The Kenya that is does the following. You're told, and I left. And if Modamaki telling you, unaenda,
Left.
tunaenda.
if you're the Luo, including Suba, is Raila, Jacom, and yeah. If it's now the Kalenjins and William, that's
What Kenya would you like to see?
What we're telling people about Kalonzo. Kalonzo wants to effect this Christian.
Christian?
Yeah. He is Christian, very Christian, evangelical Christian.
The born again variety.
Yes.
Oh, is that what he's bringing to the table?
Yes, that's what he says.
That's what he says he
He's
is.
bringing to the table. But we know also
He's bringing for us Christianity.
We know the fight he has with the three governors. It's not about that Christianity.
It's about the people.
It's about Law Eastern, or
chief.
so-called the Niwa. In fact, the funniest joke I ever saw was my good friend, the late Mutula Kilonzo, was sitting when Kofi Annan was still alive and we were doing the mediation, one of those mediation conferences. Was sitting there, and for some reason we took to each other, and because Mutula was a figure of fascination for me, highly intelligent, Moi defender. And some of us had never had time for that because when we saw him, he had his hand on our throat, his foot on our heads. so all the tear gas I took, all the dogs that we backed at, and the horses, that was that guy. Anyway, so he says, you know, you guys are very fascinating, meaning you Kikuyus. I said, first of all, why are you calling me part of the Kikuyu? He said, no. You know, at the end of it, I know when you go to whichever polling station, you'll have been singing, but when you mark, you'll mark either Matiba or Kibaki. I said, no. Actually, I went to Temple Road primary school, the first time I voted in 1992, and I marked Jaramogi. Because, again, for me, I was lucky to have been exposed to that politics. Different point. The point is, he had a point that the instrumentalization of ethnicity works as follows. That each community looks for a champion.
Yes.
And in Kenya, so the analysis in Kenya normally was a 3 Ks, 2 Ls. The big 5. So we can sell wildlife as big 5. We can sell Kenya as big 5 in terms of politics. Luo Luya, 2 Ls. Kalenjin Kamba, Kikuyu. 3. Now Somalis are coming, Merus are coming, Kisii are coming. Kambas do.
Oh, they're a populous nation.
Okay, so you're crystal balling us today.
No, so let me just finish this story. So he says, so why among us is it Gemma? G is always, so Gikuyu is always before the Embu, the Meru, and so in the textbook, the A is association. But the A in real time is a Kamba. Why is it not Agem? And I looked, I said, what did you just say? And he looked at me. I said, no. Why is it
Why can't you start with a Kamba?
Yeah. And one day, I told some of my friends who are Kalonzo's friends, one of the ways you stop being a political slicking, make it Agem. I don't know whether they listened or they... But you can see, he's fighting still as an A, Ukomwisho. Now, within the G, the break has been between East, West, and Muranga. Which is a different... So, when you're doing crystal balling, 2 things. One, it sounds like you're reading tea leaves. But actually...
Or entrails, for that matter.
Yeah, or entrails. But there's another thing. This data, I can assure you, there's data involved. This data, which if I shared with you, I'd have to...
I just want to pick your brain.
Yes,
Do we have time?
We've got 30 seconds.
But,
we don't... Okay,
but the big
so
one,
I'll wait.
The big one, actually, if you want to start, is what Mutahi Ngunyi did in 2013. Tyranny of numbers.
I was going to say, what happened to Mutahi Ngunyi?
Mutahi Ngunyi right now is a state house operator. He's thinking, he's helping Mudhamaki think through the succession.
Is that what it was?
Yes, that's what he's
So he stopped giving us some punchy
No, he's there. Go to YouTube and go to Fifth Estate.
I've
You
seen the
see
It's not the same.
His Sunday Nation column is
now YouTube.
I want me a cup of coffee with that man.
Yes.
We thank you very much for coming. Come again.
But I have to ask him who you think VP is going to be. I would love to hear.
Deputy President.
No, in order for it to work, the combinations have to work.
Yeah. So again,
if it's a numbers game, Raila should take who? Who do you think Raila should take?
If it's a numbers game, with all, again, respect to everyone, he needs to take Martha Karua.
And Ruto?
Ruto, again, someone from Mount Kenya. So between Rigathi and Waiguru,
I'd be so happy if it is a female.
Okay.
And both from Kirinyaga, by the way.
Yeah, both Kirinyaga, both Geshogo. Thank you very much for coming. Mugambi Kiai is the regional director for Article 19. Thank you very much for come again, and we look into...
Invite me, Eric. You know, I enjoy myself in the mornings when I'm watching you not refer to Article 47. When someone is deported, that is the exercise of a judicial power. So you must ask Matiang'i, did you
go through
Article 47?
Did you understand the law?
Did you understand the law? And he'll tell you what there, because they have... What they tell you about the law is that in the next hour, we talk about fuel prices globally and in the country, and the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority will be with us. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest
This
news
is
from
News
around
on
the
Dennis
world.
Oseto.
94.
There's confusion in Mombasa Wiper Democratic Movement chapter over the entry of former Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko into the Mombasa governorship race. Party officials and aspirants declared that Kisauni MP Ali Mbogo has not been issued with a direct nomination ticket, as he claimed, and will compete with Sonko, who has since shifted his political base from Nairobi to Mombasa. Wiper Secretary for Religious Affairs and Chairperson of the Wiper Caucus Mombasa chapter, Sheikh Omar Toha, said Mbogo has not been given a nomination certificate yet. Sheikh Toha, who was also flanked by Wiper Gender Secretary and aspirant for Nyali parliamentary seat Millicent Odhiambo, said aspirants were only issued issued with interim letters of acknowledgement and not certificates. Now, a former National Police Service Commissioner has plunged himself into elective politics in Mombasa County. Murshid Abdallah is seeking to inherit the outgoing Mvita MP Abdul Samad Nasir, who has been cleared by ODM to vie for the governor's position in the coastal county. Abdallah said his candidature is about bringing transformative leadership centered on resolving pertinent issues affecting Mvita residents. And Brian Lishenga will fly Orange Democratic Movement ticket in the Kakamega senatorial contest. Lishenga will be issued with the party ticket after the political outfit managed to reach a consensus with the three political aspirants eyeing the ticket. If ODM was to conduct the primaries by the way of universal suffrage, Lishenga would have to battle it out with Simbaun Ndombi and Benjamin Nandama. The ODM senatorial candidate for Kakamega is the former Rural Private Hospital Association of Kenya chairman and has previously been a Dean of Medicine at Egerton University. The war against malaria in Kenya has received a major boost following the launch of cross-border malaria control and prevention interventions at the Kenya-Uganda border in Busia County. The launch, which took place at Akiriama's Primary School in Teso South Sub-County under the banner of Great Lakes Malaria Initiative, seeks to eliminate malaria in the Great Lakes region in a coordinated manner for better outcomes. The strategy, which will prioritize working with and supporting community-led initiatives within the region's borders, will also involve distribution of bed nets, indoor residual spraying, and implementation of other critical malaria control interventions to achieve maximum impact. In Kenya, the initiative targets the Lake Region endemic counties of Migori, Homa Bay, Kisumu, Vihiga, Siaya, Busia, and parts of Bungoma and Kakamega. Now, Garissa County government, in collaboration with USAID, has launched a one-year Ufugaji Bora, Maisha Bora social and behavior change campaign to help livestock farmers in the county to increase animal yield levels. The campaign will be of social and economic benefit to the pastoralists as it will increase their income and improve their livelihoods, thus alleviating poverty. The leaders will seek to help the farmers adopt promoted animal health technologies, use high-quality feeds on a regular basis, sell their livestock through aggregation channels such as farmers' groups and SACCOs, among others. The farmers will further be trained to adopt improved hygienic milking, handling, and preservation practices. And the death toll from floods that have battered South Africa climbed above 440 as abating rains allowed rescue operations to accelerate after one of the deadliest storms in living memory. Torrential rains that started lasting the southeastern coastal region last weekend quickly triggered heavy floods and landslides that smashed into Durban City and surrounding areas, pulling with them buildings and people. By Sunday, 443 people, including 2 police emergency workers, had died from the raging floods. Scientists warn that floods and other extreme weather events are becoming more powerful and frequent as the world gets warmer because of climate change. And Ukraine has vowed to fight to the end in Mariupol after a Russian ultimatum expired for remaining forces to surrender in the Black Sea port city, where Moscow is pushing for a major strategic victory. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said the city still has not fallen. He said Ukrainian military are still in Mariupol and will fight to the end. Moscow has shifted its military focus to gaining control of the eastern Donbas region and forging a land corridor to already annexed Crimea. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Assetto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so what's happening on the roads this morning? Nothing much, all right? There's no traffic in and out of Nairobi, any of the major roads. We're talking about Mombasa Road, Thika Superhighway, Westlands, Ngong Road, Langata Road, Jogoo Road, or the bypasses. They're all looking very, very smooth this morning. Everywhere is all looking very good. But if there's anything that we ought to talk about, please let us know so we can alert everybody else. And that is by tagging us at SpiceFMKE on Twitter. We know that there are people who had left the city, gone out of the city, and they'll be heading back into the city today. We basically just hope that they'll have fuel. The boss of fuel is in the studio with us, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority Director General. We'll be speaking to him shortly. Keep it here for that. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound.
It is 7 minutes
a man
after
who
8 on the
believes in
18th day of March 2022. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. If you're just joining us, we are now live on KTN Home, in addition to being live on SpiceFM and online, YouTube and Facebook, SpiceFM KE. Eric Latiff, CT Muga Ndu is away for the weekend. Our guest host today is Angela Angwenyi, and we have a new guest in the studio, Daniel Kipto, the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Before we welcome him to the show, let's hear the day's proverb.
Today's proverb is from Benin.
Benna.
Benna, as it's pronounced, but written Benin with an N at the end. Okay. Anyone who sees beauty and does not look at it will soon be poor.
Anyone who sees beauty and does not look at it. How did you see it if you're not looking?
I was just going to say, pan the camera to me. I mean,
let me repeat it. Anyone who sees beauty and does not look at it
will soon be poor.
Yes. Look, talk about experience.
You make something cryptic so you sound intelligent.
Actually, I am reading the proverb as it was written.
The Beninois.
Yeah. Yes. You see, when you say someone is poor, we are not saying that they're economically deprived, not necessarily. You are poorer of something or by something by virtue of the fact that you haven't given yourself the opportunity to take full benefits of what it is. So you're poorer as a result of it. Not that you are poor, but poorer. So if there's something beautiful and you don't take in the beauty, like a sunrise or a sunset,
yeah, you're poorer.
You're poorer. As a result of it, the experience that you've missed, experientially, you're poorer.
We get you, CT. We're here. We're here with you. We're together. Pamoja.
Kabisa.
Kabisa.
Right. As we introduce our guest, let's remind you about what Colgate has been doing around the country, sinking 90 wells in collaboration with Well Boring, a UK NGO, in the counties of Kisumu, Siaya, Kakamega, Migori, Kwale, Kitui, Homa Bay, 90 wells around schools, which have benefited approximately 120,000 lives due to the ongoing severity of the water challenge across the communities. Colgate wants to donate a further 30 water wells this calendar year to benefit thousands of pupils, their teachers, families, and communities by creating access to clean drinking water. What do they want you to do? Just go to Naivas supermarket, buy a tube of Colgate, and part of the proceeds will go to this particular initiative, sinking 30 wells by the end of this year. And this is Colgate. When they say end of this year, they mean end of this year. Not, sometime, a fluid date. It is end of this year.
And they keep you smiling, eh?
Oh, yeah, they keep you smiling. Daniel Kipto, the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you, Eric.
How was your Easter?
Well, my Easter has been busy. Not busy because I'm on holiday, but busy because we were trying to make sure that we've self-corrected the market and we make sure that Kenyans have fuel to be able to travel up country, to go on their holiday, and ensure that normalcy returns.
So it has just been made busy for you by what else has happened the previous week?
No, the last couple of weeks have been quite challenging, particularly the last 3.5, 4 weeks, because we've seen a lot of things happening in the market. And I think this is first from a geopolitical standpoint. We've been seeing what has been happening and the events globally, particularly with the global supply chain. Petroleum products are globally traded commodity. So we don't have a lot of influence or we don't have a lot of hold on what happens internationally with this globally traded commodity. And I think geopolitically, we all know what's been happening in Russia and Ukraine. We have seen on a month by month, particularly last month and the month before, what is unprecedented. We've not seen a jump in the cost of product. For instance, like super has gone up about $250 a metric ton on a month by month. Diesel rather, super is about $130, $140. And for us, we actually import our product based on what is called an open tender system. And what happens internationally actually affects us locally. So really that has been the bigger issue that we've seen. There are other structural issues which we could be able to discuss with you. But at the end of the day, where we are is we've actually had to step in to ensure that Kenyans actually have this commodity which is much needed.
Something that has always puzzled me.
Yes.
It is true. Petroleum products are influenced by the international goings-on. Now, not very long ago, we had this terrible, horrible disease called COVID. And at some point, we were told, because people wanted traveling and the demand for fuel had gone down to next to zero, the price of fuel also had gone, well, crude oil, so to speak, had gone down to almost zero. But it didn't really affect the price at our pumps that much. I didn't see a significant lowering of it. I heard logic, reasons that were given, that you see it depends on when you bought it. And purchasing here. So I want to understand, when petroleum products are purchased, is it like sugar, which when I buy I'm actually given and I walk home with it? Or is it something that I place an order for 1 month, 2-3 months, and I'm locked onto the price that I bought it at? So at a prudent time, I then get the supplies in the tranche that I need? How does this work?
Yeah, maybe how it works before I get there. Just with COVID, I think you probably didn't notice because we're all at home at the time. We're all working from home, we're all at home. Between August of 2020, there was a crash in the prices. The barrel per dollar went to about $30 per barrel. We actually had pump prices of about close to 80 shillings, 78 to 80 shillings per litre.
In Kenya?
In Kenya. But not many Kenyans noticed this because all of us were at home and we didn't really pay a lot of attention to that.
Those guys were coming to work.
Yes, that's what we're asking.
But you don't remember fueling.
No, you did. I will get you the numbers on what our published pump prices were. But it was about 79, 80 shillings. But it's because the demand was really low, and really that's the reason. But just going back to COVID, and I think this is one of the areas where nobody anticipated, even with this crisis that we have with Russia and Ukraine, nobody really anticipated that the market would rebalance so quickly and economies would come out of COVID so fast. Other than air travel, which is still struggling a bit, there was really a rebalancing of the economies globally quite quickly, and demand quickly caught up, and supply was not catching up as fast. And that's part of the challenge that we've seen in terms of the price. And this is a demand and supply issue. Just going back to your question around how do you import petroleum products into the country? We do operate what is called an open tender system. This open tender system is the method how we procure and import petroleum products into this country. It's a very celebrated system. Actually, a lot of countries, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, have borrowed from it. So what happens, Kenya imports products into this country through the port of Mombasa, not only for Kenya's consumption, but also for regional consumption. We have landlocked countries such as Uganda, South Sudan, part of Eastern DRC, Rwanda, that import products through our system. So what then happens is that we do a 3-month projection. What is our global demand as a country, and what is also the demand from other countries. So Kenya's infrastructure is also used by other countries. So the ratio in which local and transit is shared historically has been by principle 60-40. So we have your KPC system, you have your jetty in Mombasa, and you have your storage terminal, Kipevio terminal. You then do a 3-month projection and say, what is our demand, not only for Kenya, but for the region, split on that 60-40 basis. You then go out and
60
being local, 60% of that volume being for the local market and 40% being for the transit market.
Okay.
You then go and plan for a tender. And this tender is run by the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining and oversighted by us as the regulator, where you have the companies that we license as importers. They have a right to participate in this open tender. That's why it's called an open tender system, where you then bid to import product into the country. And as I said, because it's a globally traded commodity, you do have an international benchmark called Platts. So we use Mediterranean Platts to then price our product. What then these companies compete on is what is called freight and premium. What is the cost of moving that product from the port of origin to the port of Mombasa, and what is ideally is your premium, which is your profit. It's a very open and transparent system. So
how many companies participate in this?
You have your importers. You have about close to 90 odd companies that are licensed to import product into the country.
Do they all import?
But they don't all import. There are those who focus on importation because that's a trading business. And there are those who wait to receive their entitlement from these companies to be able then to distribute.
Okay.
So how do you share between these companies? That's another question that probably your viewers and your listeners would have. This is shared on the basis of market share and basis of allege allocation. So allege is the capacity of the system.
Okay, before we get there, Daniel,
yes,
let's just
yes, Eric.
Understanding this open tender system clearly, because we have heard about it very many times. We've talked about it on the show.
Yes.
So the projection here is 3 months projection. And then who determines this projection, the demand projection? Is it the market that comes to say that this is what our needs are going to be, or is it APRA that decides that this is how much has been consumed in the last 3 months, so we project the same to be consumed? Who comes up with this figure of the 3 months?
You have a multi-sectoral committee that has industry represented, that has the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining represented, that has the Kenya Pipeline Company represented, which we then oversight as the regulator.
Okay.
That basically says, because you have to match your capacity, because you cannot import product if you have nowhere to store it. So you have to look at what capacity does Kenya Pipeline have, what is the demand projection into the country. You then balance those two and then come up with this number.
Okay.
And that number then globally is then shared amongst the all importing companies that are licensed by EPRA on a pro rata basis based on your market share.
Are Kenya Pipeline the only people who have the capacity for storage?
No. You do have private terminals owned by oil marketing companies. For you to be able to have a private terminal that is connected to the KPC system, it is what we call a common user facility. So if you build your own facility and you want it connected to the system, there's a principle called open access that we need you to be able to apply to, and you need to be able to have this common user facility share your capacity pro rata to the market, so that then you don't use your facility to then gain market share or have anti-competitive practices.
Okay.
Yes, Angela.
There's a lot of English that has been spoken amongst you three. Let me just boil it down a little bit. Let me understand this. You're a regulatory body. You're an oversight.
Yes.
You're like Parliament for the oil
Yes,
oil
we're the
industry.
regulator.
Yes. Because, what I heard when I first came in is y'all didn't pay your bill to the oil marketers companies, right? Or the oil market corporation. There's a outstanding debt, right? And then government has gone to pay this bill, correct?
There is no bill as of today.
Okay, because I was told it's going to be cleared. But you are not in charge of paying anybody.
No, we are not. That is a government side.
So you're like the Media Council of Kenya, but then every other media does whatever they want to do, correct?
Not really. Do
they have to come to you to seek all these?
Yes, before the government compensates the oil marketers, because they're the ones who set the price. There is a pricing regulation.
Yeah.
So we are the ones who compute the price. Once you compute the price, we then also communicate to government who is entitled to what.
So you determine how much it costs when I'm going to pump my gas. You're the one.
That is correct.
In consultation with everybody else?
Yes, there is a formula. There's a regulation. It's a formula. So it's really the building blocks. For instance, what is the landed cost? So for us to determine what the average landed cost would be, we take the cargoes, which are the vessels, the boats, so to speak, that come into the country between the 9th of the pricing month to the 10th. So from the 9th of March to the 10th of April, we then take the number of vessels that have come. And as I said, you already know what the price of that vessel is, what volume it's carrying, and based on a tender that was conducted 2 months back.
Hey, DG. Kizungu nyingi. Alafu, let me ask, so was there a shortage because you didn't pay your bills on time? Or was there a shortage because there was no product in the market?
There was a shortage because there was a lot of uncertainty.
What is that supposed to mean?
Uncertainty on the oil marketers' side. From the government side, there was no issue around payment because the government so far has paid 49 billion, including the bill that was paid on Thursday, which will then be hitting the marketers' accounts tomorrow. That was the outstanding balance of the 14 billion. But before that, the government had already paid over 34 billion.
So what was causing the uncertainty in the market?
The uncertainty was caused by two things. One was jittery by the oil marketers, which from government we were not sure why it was coming, because the government has always paid its bills. And as you say, a government is a government in perpetuity. So if you're owed money by a government and the government has processes in terms of payment, as I said, let me explain how this compensation works. We compute the price. Once we announce the price on the 14th, we then take a couple of days to then determine which marketer is owed what, which we then communicate to government, for government then to begin the process of payment. I assume here at Standard Group, you have probably a 30-day window to pay your suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a process.
Probably longer.
Probably longer.
Yes.
So there
30
is
to 60 days.
30
most
60
times,
days.
yeah.
So there is a process to then
But
pay.
what happened, DG? I mean, for them to feel uncertain, you guys must have gone for a long time without paying.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. These are business people. Government doesn't do what business people do. They're two very separate entities. Because I want to ask this question. Why does the government feel they have to control fuel prices? Why not just leave it to the vagaries of the market?
You've thrown on us spanner now.
I'm like,
No.
We've gone like into the fourth question before even the DG has finished answering the second one.
Actually, all right. I withdraw the question, DG.
No, we have had it. Let's go.
Let me answer
Let's
it
go.
in very simple terms.
Yes.
If the government was not to step in and regulate the market, then the oil marketers would then charge what they felt
An arm and a leg.
they should charge.
Sure.
What used to happen before the price regulation days is what's called price merging. So you have probably 3 or 4 majors, which are international companies that control maybe 60 or 70% of your market share. For instance, here in Mombasa, you have 3 stations, 3 international companies. And when one increases their prices, what do the other 2 do? They merge. They go to the same level. So you then don't have oversight in terms of how much they charge you. But I think today's context will offer some reprieve. And as I said, the delta between what we publish as the maximum pump price in this cycle and what you ought to be paying, for instance, for diesel, is a delta of 50 shillings, of which 9.9 shillings has been passed on to you as the consumer. And the
So
government,
that's what you increased it by?
Yes, and the government is stabilizing by providing the additional 41 shillings. So if you were not having this stabilization and price regulation, you'd be paying today 173 shillings and 70 cents for super at the pump.
But DG, you've increased it by 9 shillings, right?
Yes.
You're the one who determines the price. Yet you take a very large amount in tax. The same government is going to take some money back, right?
That's correct.
How does that make sense?
So no, I think from a taxation standpoint...
So why don't you take less tax, make the fuel price a bit more normal? I mean, we can't afford...
No, I think the big issue here, from a taxation standpoint, I think that's a separate issue because taxation is legislation.
But it's one and the same. Think about it. You take a large amount in tax. You've increased the pump price. I mean, see, am I the only one? I mean, I'm just confused.
Maybe just to explain, the oil market is really a boom bust cycle. And a year and a half ago, we were talking $30 oil. A month ago, 3 weeks ago, the barrel was trading $134. Today, we are teetering between 98 and 104. And this is the nature of the oil market. And this is how even the oil companies plan on a 6-month cycle. You will then lose some money this month, you'll make some money next month, and over a 6-month period, it then evens out. So really making a taxation policy or government policy on the basis of what has happened on a month basis is not probably the most prudent thing to do. But ultimately, when it comes to taxation, again, taxation is in the purview of the
Revenue Authority.
No, not the Revenue Authority, but Parliament. But again, you also need to look at it from a standpoint of government, that there are programs that need to be funded and there are programs that need to be predictable. And I'm not here to speak for government, but really to speak on what are the building blocks and what are the mechanics.
So 9 bob, let's go back to these 9 shillings, which I read somewhere it's the largest increase that's happened in a decade. In a very long time. I was told, I read somewhere it's in a decade. So given the hard times that we've been going through, people have not been working, COVID and all these things. I mean, you guys can understand. I mean, there's a way. Maybe why don't you subsidize a high amount? I mean, you're already collecting our taxes.
And I think that's the logic from a governmental standpoint, is like we don't want to allow Kenyans to bear the full brunt.
Yeah, but we can bear 9 bob.
9 bob within the grander scheme of things. And that's why I bring the number of 50.
9 out of 50.
Yes. So and that's
So
really
the reason
the
I'm
context.
the reason I'm on the 9 bob, I'll tell you why. Because when you raise pump prices, the matatu fares go up. Everything goes up, from the alcohol somebody's drinking today to the food they're eating to the market price to the mama mboga. Everything goes up. My salary doesn't go up. So please, if you can ask employers to raise our salaries in accordance with fuel price or whatever the state of the economy, then that makes sense. But
you know, the issue here isn't, in my mind, so much what is happening as making people understand why it's happening.
Correct.
That could also be true.
Because I even wonder if the open market or the market forces would push oil prices 200. Let it. Let those who will buy fuel determine whether they're going to buy fuel or not. Because sooner or later, if the demand goes down, the very people who are selling oil will realize that this thing isn't selling. Nobody's buying this thing. I'm arguing this way for a simple reason. I understand the logic behind protectionism. But in our case, yes, you are a regulatory body. So what I'm about to say may not be in your purview. When you consider the 9 or so levies that are lumped on petroleum products, my 3 favorite ones, I have favorites. There is a petroleum development levy, number 1. Number 2, fuel adulteration levy. I really like that one. Then road maintenance levy, love it. They all make sense. And I even understand, because I understand what they do. But the moment there's so much levy on fuel, I have to ask the question, so what is the government subsidizing? Because I'm already paying for it anyway. This money that I keep paying.
Hello?
Yes. So when the government says they're subsidizing, these are the monies that I've paid as levies. This is not really a question, but I'm simply saying it. Where does this money go? Government usually doesn't tell you such things. Is this the money that they're using for subsidy? Then in that case, it isn't a subsidy, because I, the consumer, I'm paying for it.
That's correct. It's your money. It's your money. And maybe just to explain one of those levies, this petroleum development levy, because it should be a self-funding levy. And as I said, we're living in very extraordinary times. And again, going back to the point that the oil industry is a boom-bust cycle. So today we may be talking about higher prices. Tomorrow the prices will crash. And you'll be able then to build this fund. So today we're in a place where over the last 8 to 12 months, we've been consistently paying out of this fund. But as we're seeing the trend where globally the prices of crude are going down, the prices of commodity are going down.
They're starting to come down?
Yes.
Okay.
You will then start seeing a downward trend. And when you have a downward trend, then you start building up the fund. And you're building up for a rainy day.
Okay.
So that's how the Petroleum Development Levy Fund.
So basically what you're
works.
saying, DG, is the Petroleum Development Levy, we put this money into a kitty. It's 5 shillings and
It's
40
your money.
cents.
It's your
right?
money. Yes.
Every time you're buying at the pump,
Yes.
5 shillings and 40 cents for
Yes.
petrol, for super petrol, goes in there. So in the last 12 months or so, because of the global rise of international crude prices, we have also seen local prices rising.
Correct.
And to stabilize, you've gone into that kitty and taken the money now to stabilize. And you're projecting that when the prices globally start going down, local prices will also start coming down.
That is correct.
And at that point, then we will not be stabilizing. It'll be...
You will then be rebuilding this kitty
Okay.
for the next rainy day.
Okay. Is the kitty protected by law?
Yeah, the kit is provided for in the law.
Is it protected in terms of this money can only be used for price stabilization?
That is one area where we're actually currently as a regulator working on regulations with the National Treasury and the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, so that then we can be able to put in a governance framework. But the question, I've heard this question before, is this Petroleum Development Levy provided for in law? Yes, there is no way this levy could have been levied on Kenyans without having a legal framework. There is a legal framework. But there is a governance framework that is in the works in terms of a regulation to be able to have a governance framework so that then you can be even more transparent. I think going back to the issue of taxes, I think the energy and petroleum sectors are probably the most transparent, because when you look at your power bills, and I know today we're not here to discuss power, but that's still within our mandate, and also your fuel, you're able to see a gazette notice that tells you these are the taxes. But I'm sure sometimes you walk into the supermarket and you buy a loaf of bread, or when you go to a hotel, there's a catering levy, there's a tourism levy.
Training levy.
And you don't see it because what you get is an all-in cost. So I think, particularly for the energy sector, you should be commending us because what you see is all the components in terms of a price build-up, including what the margins are for the oil marketers.
You are right. We need to commend you. You do.
I was going to say commendation.
No, true.
Let's take a break.
Yes.
On that note, it's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Eric Latiff, CT Muga. Our guest host today is Angela Ngwenyi. And our guest this morning, now until 10, is Daniel Kiptoo, the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. We want to understand what's been happening with fuel at the pumps. We want to understand when the stabilization will happen, when we are going back to normal, and also very many other things. Keep it here for that. Remember, Angela, Showmax, right? And the way that we have Showmax, you can subscribe for Showmax for as little as 700. How much, City? 760 shillings.
Let me tell you, by the way, it's the most affordable and it's got really good content. And I love that it actually has a lot of African content. I love it.
That's true. One of those African, actually Kenyan content is Crime and Justice, where season 2 is now up on Showmax. Beautiful. You said you like Sarah Hassan.
I love Sarah Hassan, and I think she's a fantastic. She's now one of those who will become another Lupita in the near future.
Yeah, she's gone there.
Yeah, she's doing well.
Last year, she won the 2021 Kalasha Award for Best Lead Actress.
Is it?
Yep. And Showmax itself had already received 3 nominations: Best TV Drama, Best Lead Actor, Best Lead Actress.
I was going to say Kalasha is still a thing, but okay.
Big time. Big time. Indeed it is. Keep it here for more, coming up shortly.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Brought to you by Colgate.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, like, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
A bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so is it going to rain in Nairobi today? We don't know, but it's going to be partly sunny. Highs of 25 and lows of 16. Obviously, some parts of Nairobi are going to experience some showers, just like parts of Mombasa are going to experience light rain today. Highs of 31 and lows of 26. Malindi, rain showers as well. 32 high, lows of 27. Kisumu City, partly sunny day at 29, lows of 19. Nakuru City, mostly cloudy day at 26 and lows of 15. Eldoret, 24 highs and lows of 14, mostly cloudy day, and Kakamega is going to be 28 highs and lows of 16. Kampala, Uganda, partly sunny at 27 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, sunny day as well, 32 highs and lows of 25. Lagos, Nigeria, rainy day at 32 and lows of 23. Kinshasa, mostly sunny day at 33 and lows of 22. Johannesburg, mostly cloudy at 17 and lows of 9. In China, Beijing, they are going into an evening with highs of 23 and they'll have lows of 7 later tonight. London this morning is sunny at 17 and lows of 7. New York will be waking up to clear skies at 11 and lows of 6, while Paris is sunny, highs of 19 and lows of 6.
Spice up your life.
Nothing to report when it comes to traffic, though roads are looking pretty clear this morning. Mombasa Road into town or out of town is good. Thika Superhighway into town and out of town, all good. Last week on Friday, we were talking about how the roads were congested at petrol stations. We are not seeing that today. So probably that's what Daniel Kipto will tell us. Maybe the situation is getting back to normal. Now people have fuel in their vehicles and there's more petrol stations that have fuel. So if there's anything that we ought to talk about, please let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's our handle.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
24 minutes to 9. The conversation continues. Eric Latiff, CT Muga, Angela
94.4
Daniel
Spice
Kipto,
FM.
Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Daniel, you were explaining to us how you control the price. I mean, how you announce the price controls that run for a month. And then, in this particular case, when you're applying the price stabilization mechanism, how you end up then compensating the oil marketing companies. The conversation that's been out there for the last 3 weeks is the government has not paid the oil marketing companies, and that's why we have the jitters in the market. And you said that may not necessarily be the case. So take us through, in an ordinary month, let's say December last year, when IPRA on the 14th came up and said these are going to be the prices for the next 1 month, and there's going to be a price stabilization mechanism. We are going to refund the oil marketing companies this much. How did you pay them? How do you end up paying them?
All right, Eric, maybe just to take a step back.
Yes.
Before you get the 14th and how you pay them, I think you need to go 2 months back. So 2 months prior to the 14th of any month is the industry, the government, the Kenya Pipeline Company working in conjunction with the regulator, look at what are the import projections. And as I said, not only for the country, but for the region.
Yeah.
And based on that, then you have your import quantities. And you then call for a tender. When you call for a tender, this is a globally traded commodity. All the importing companies licensed by EPRA bid to import on behalf of the industry. Once they win the tender, the vessels are then scheduled because you have a berth in Mombasa, which will then need to be prioritized in terms of which vessel comes first, what we call vessel scheduling. Once that happens, then you have a date range within which your vessel should be at the port of Mombasa. Your ship sails, it docks at the port of Mombasa, discharges its product, it gets into the Kenya pipeline system. At that point in time, then that product is shared amongst all the oil importing companies. And as I said, it is shared on the basis of market share. Then we are the regulator, we are governed by regulation, which allows us then to set the maximum prices. This has a formula. So what we do is just input the building blocks. We look at, in any particular pricing month, which are the cargoes that arrived between the 9th of the preceding month and the 10th of the pricing month. We then take an average of that, and that becomes the basis of your landed cost. We then add all the other building blocks which are already provided for. Your margins, your cost of transportation by pipeline from Mombasa to Nairobi, on the way to Eldoret, Nakuru to Eldoret and to Kisumu. Then the road transport to the station. And then we add your dealer margins and you add your taxes. So it is a very mechanical process. Once we do that, then we set the prices. From last year in April, when we started the process of stabilization, is we then look at what the price ought to be at the pump. We then have a conversation with the government in terms of how do we apply this stabilization fund. And we then arrive at a decision on do we hold the prices constant and draw from the kitty, or do we allow the prices to go as they should be? And that now is the process of stabilization. Once we then land that, we as a regulator then announce the prices on the 14th. We then take another couple of days to then look at that stabilization amount and how it should be apportioned between the marketers on the basis of their import allocation. We as the regulator then communicate this to the government through the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. They then have an engagement with the National Treasury, and there's a lot of back-end administrative work that happens to allow then the oil marketers to be paid. And this takes me back to the point in terms of the challenge we've seen the last couple of weeks, was it caused by payment or non-payment by the government? The answer would be no. Why? 49 billion shillings has been applied in stabilization in the past year. And of that, government is in no arrears. As of Thursday, the delta, which was remaining, which was close to 15 billion shillings, was actually remitted to the oil marketing companies. And the process I've just explained, particularly post the 14th, once we announce the pump price, is the period within which oil marketing companies get paid. And as I said, governments are government in perpetuity. Once a government has an obligation, that obligation will be honored. And again, drawing again from private sector, is that when you have your suppliers, for instance, here at the station, you then have a 30 to 60 day period within which to pay your bill.
Yep.
So, and that is the reason why I say the issue of delayed payment or non-payment does not arise first. The time period within which you'll be paid cannot be the reason why we had this challenge.
How long does it normally take between that point when the new prices take effect on the 15th and the point when they receive their stabilization money? How long does it take? Does it take 30 days, 60 days, 90
Probably about
days?
30 days.
30 days.
Yeah.
Does it ever go beyond 30 days?
No, it doesn't. No,
Has it ever gone beyond 30 days?
It has, I believe, once.
Okay.
Yes.
In this particular time when we were seeing this uncertainty in the market, had it gone beyond 30 days?
No, it hadn't. Because there had been 8.2 billion shillings that was paid 2 weeks previously. But maybe I can talk to where this challenge arose from. And I think probably that's where your listeners and your viewers would want to understand. And the jitteriness was twofold from the market. I think the first one, in terms of lack of payment, was not a good reason for the oil marketing companies. But I think that's a story maybe we could park for now, because I think from a regulatory standpoint, and also from what you heard from the government as spoken to by the Cabinet Secretary for Petroleum and also Energy, Ambassador Monica Juma, is that government is not happy with the posture of the oil marketing companies.
Okay.
But what does that mean?
The government had given assurance to the oil marketing companies that yes, there's a challenge, and I'll talk to what the challenge was, and we're able to address that challenge and give them the assurance that we'll be able to make them whole. But we still saw a lot of hoarding of this product by the oil marketing companies. I think one of the challenges was that the lack of predictability in terms of what will government do on the 14th because of the increasing or escalating price in the international market. Because we plan on a 2-month lag basis. The oil marketing companies sometimes, as I said, they plan on a 6-month cycle. They will then sell this product into the market because, for instance, in the month that you're in, the product that you're using for pricing is the product that was imported on the N-2 basis.
2 months prior. Okay.
So the reality sometimes is that you have product in your system that is priced a bit later. So, for instance, March price product. And because of that jump of about $250 per metric ton, for instance, of diesel, you have product in the system that is waiting to be priced in the next month. And because you're not sure of what the government will do on the 14th, you're a bit jittery because you may forward sell, let me call it forward selling. You may forward sell this product into the market, and then you have a price adjustment that then you then take a hit on. So that was the bigger challenge.
So, I mean, where was the communication in this? Because what I'm hearing is because the government and the oil marketing companies were not communicating, I end up suffering. I'm a consumer. So it's not because there was no product in the market. It was because there was a lack of proper communication and unpaid bills. Because, you know,
communication, maybe speak to the communication, because we as a regulator did quite a lot of shuttling between the government and the oil marketing companies. I will tell you for a fact, over the last 3 weeks, we've had numerous meetings with oil marketing companies. We have recognized that challenge. We're able to assure them that we'll be able to make them whole, even formally communicated to them that we'll be able to cover that risk on their part and allow them to continue selling, and also gave them an assurance, and the ministry also on the government side gave them the assurance that this is what we are going to do come the 14th. So could you then go ahead on this understanding, which was formalized on paper, to be able then to supply the market. But for some reason, the oil marketing companies were unwilling. And that's the reason you see that the government was not very happy
Has
with
this ever
with the
happened
posture
before?
of oil marketing companies. No, it has not.
So it's never happened before that oil companies have actually imported product at a higher price and they're not sure what the government is going to do come the 14th?
No, they have. But in terms of the scale of the jump, the magnitude of the jump of over $200 a metric ton, that increased the exposure.
It did, but then I have to ask this question, simplistic as it is going to sound. What is our storage capacity in this country? Private and Kenya
Public.
Pipeline.
No, we do have sufficient storage in the country.
No. How long does it last when we're at full capacity?
Yes, we do have, on average, about 20 days, between 20 to 30 days of stocks in the country, to last the country 20 to 30 days. Actually, there is a regulation, and this is one of the regulations that we're seeking to enforce as a regulator, on minimum operational stocks, where the oil marketing companies are obligated to keep at least 21 days stocks, so that then you don't have a stock out into the country. Also, the issue of holding back petroleum products is also an offense in the law. So I think this is a separate regulatory process and enforcement process. But in terms of do we have sufficient capacity? Yes. During the period that we had this challenge, was there sufficient stock in the country? Yes. Back to the question, was there a challenge, which I've just tried to explain as to where it came about? Yes, there was a structural challenge. Did the regulator and the government come out to address this issue, working jointly with oil marketing companies? We did. Did it offer a solution to Kenyans before the 14th? There was a challenge. Why was there a challenge? I believe that is a question really for the oil marketers.
Did you look at it from their standpoint? I mean, because Daniel, they are, like you said, these are businesses. And so here you are in a business operating in a very tightly controlled and regulated business, and its volumes. And then there's such a huge jump in your product price. There's uncertainty on what the government is going to do. You are left exposed, just like if you use all those words, as a business, exposure, and that's a huge risk. Did you look at it and try to understand them from that point of, clearly, guys, we can understand that you are exposed and this is our guarantee and our surety to you? Did you give them such sureties?
Yes, we gave them those assurances at meetings, verbally, and even went to the next hog and gave this assurance formally in writing.
Have you given assurances in the past and not fulfilled them?
No.
No. It's a valid question.
It's a very valid question.
It is a valid question.
I'm smirking at his ass.
No. There's something else here. You see
Maybe Angela from another context. Maybe you have another context you can tell us.
But
from purely
I'm sorry.
a petroleum context, the answer would be no. Yes, City.
What I want to know is having a refinery or refineries that function in the country, would it have any positive effect on this story we have of oil production, petroleum, etc., etc.?
Yes, we did have a refinery which stopped refining product back in 2012. Having a refinery in country would help, but then the question again is issues of economies of scale and the level of investment. Because what you see these days globally is refineries that are built to huge economies of scale. And this was the reason why the refinery was shut down. I think really, to CT's question, the question here is around maybe three issues. One is the role of the national oil company.
Yes.
In terms of stabilizing the market.
Yes.
The role of strategic stocks.
Yes.
Being able to build up stocks into the country.
Yes.
Because this really is a energy security, and energy security now is national security.
Yes.
I think to the first issue in terms of the role of national...
And also oil production locally. Go ahead.
Yes. I can have that as a fourth one. But I think on the first one, the national oil company was set up, and I think one of the functions of the national oil company was to stabilize the market. The national company has not been able to play that role for various reasons. But I think the government now has taken a keen interest in the national company, and I think this was also communicated by the Cabinet Secretary when she did speak last week on Thursday, is really how do we ensure that there is a regulation that has been in force from 2008 that has not been utilized by the national company, which is a 30% input quota for the national oil company. So the national oil company is able, out of your global demand of product in the country,
to have 30%.
30% dedicated to the national oil company. So the national oil company is able to stabilize the market. So when we have certain challenges, the government, through a government entity, is able to step in and satisfy the market. So that is one of the key outcomes and takeaways and lessons out of the challenge we've had the last couple of weeks.
On that point number one, before you move to point number two, on national oil company, this is not the first time that we've heard the government talking about NOC and making NOC a strategic player in the market.
Yeah.
When Kiraitu Morongi was Minister for Energy, and during the time when we were introducing the price controls and all, this was one of the conversations that was top. Increase the number of stations that National Oil has in the country, increase National Oil's capacity to play in the market. That started, it went for 2 years, it stopped. What is it that made it stop then?
No, I think I won't be in a place to talk about the challenges that NOC has faced, because there are quite a number. But the question we should be asking ourselves, not just as the authority, as Daniel, but as Kenyans, is even though we failed in the past, does not mean we should not try and make it work now.
It's good to understand why we failed.
Yes, and I think learning the lessons, and we have actually learned the lessons. I think one of the bigger challenges has been financing. As I said, government has a lot of competing interests. Build your roads, pay for healthcare, support other sectors. And as I said, the oil business is highly capital intensive, huge volumes, low margins, and very volatile. So the big challenge, particularly for public sector, how do you finance such a business? Because it's a game of margin, so to speak. So you make a bit and you lose a bit, and over time you then average it out. But when you come to a government enterprise, being that agile sometimes a bit of a challenge. And how do you have access to that financing? But as you say, there are lessons to be learned. Other countries have been able to grow their national companies, both from an exploration standpoint and production standpoint, but also from a trading standpoint. And I think the national company is really trying to learn from these lessons, so then we can be able to have the national oil company play its rightful role. So I think that's one of the big areas and the big takeaways which I know government is looking to actually get into.
Okay.
In terms of the second issue,
strategic
stocks, again, it comes to a financing issue, because the stocks that you bring into the country must be financed, and you must pay for the cost of stock holding. So we as a regulator have been, over the last 2 years, have developed some regulations around strategic stocks, around minimum operational stocks, around the role of the national company, and try to be a bit innovative based on the lessons that we've learned from other jurisdictions, on particularly how do you finance these stocks. Because as you know, these are stocks that will not sit in a tank for 10 years. You have to keep turning them around every other 6 months. You allow this product into the market and then you replenish because of the nature of the product. So for you need to be able to think about, how do I finance this? How do I make it sustainable? But more importantly, how do I not lose money? Because this is taxpayers' money.
That's why I asked that question much earlier on. We may have this capacity for storage that lasts maybe 20 to 21 days. But the entities we buy from have a capacity that lasts longer. The question then was, can we buy into the future? Can we say, for instance, we want to buy 3 months stock, and you keep it, but you supply it to us when we need it? Does that happen, or is this magic thinking on my part?
No, it does happen. And what you've just explained is called hedging. So you're able to hedge, but in terms of hedging also, you need to take decisions. And I think we need to recognize the society that we live in. And Kenya is highly litigious, and a lot of questions. I know a lot of your listeners will be calling in with a lot of questions, a lot of comments. We need to be sure that we have a process that is verifiable, that is auditable, particularly when it is going against you, when on a hedge is going against you.
Why did you?
If you're saving money, Kenyans are very happy. But when you lose money, then the questions come. So I think we've really tried to be innovative in terms of regulation and try to make regulatory interventions and also suggest policies that are able to borrow from a lot of these experiences, but ensure that we fit them into the local circumstance.
You know, they say, there's that Swahili saying, I'm probably just going to paraphrase it, it's really terrible. My Swahili's bad. When two big bulls are fighting, it's the grass in Naumia or something like that. And right now I come from a consumer perspective, because, I mean, every day we use our cars and so on and so forth. So how do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? Because what happened, for me, what I'm understanding from you is all marketing guys were not happy. They decided to withhold, which, by the way, is almost hoarding.
It's illegal.
It's illegal. So what are the measures being taken to those who are actually withholding stock and not selling to us? What is going to happen to them? Because you know them.
Yes, we do know them, and we are actually in the process. And I think this is a separate process. There is an enforcement process going on. Because for us, our job is not only to set pump prices. We have a lot of wider regulatory mandate. And I think the question you're asking, Angela, is around our role in enforcement. So what we're actually going down a path, and we have been able to look at the last 4 weeks, because we know who holds what product in the system, as I was explaining early on, and who released product into the system. I just must say also some of the oil marketing companies were very supportive and were able to take this assurance and release product into the market, and that's why you could see some trickle into the system, particularly the last 2 weeks. But some were not very cooperative. And you've seen certain actions that have been taken in relation to some of those who are not cooperative. And we, as a regulator, have
What are those actions, sorry? I didn't see them.
We have we have issued show cause letters as a regulator because this is part of the licensing conditions. Hoarding is an offence under the Petroleum Act. It is also one of the licensing conditions that they must comply with the directions that the authority gives them.
You know, they were hoarding for 3 weeks.
They were hoarding for about 3 weeks. But in those 3 weeks, there was active engagement by the government, by us as the regulator, with the oil marketing companies, which in our view, we thought was yielding a result, particularly for the last 2 weeks. But unfortunately, there was a lot of talk and less action.
But you know what that means? When you're being friendly to them and they're doing something that is illegal according to what you guys do, it's because you guys also are not innocent.
No,
because bills were not paid.
By the way, if we're talking of innocence, we might as well talk to ourselves, the consumer. We are also not innocent.
Never.
You know why?
You panicked.
Yes, when there's a panic,
you're right.
It's like the run on a bank. There is no bank that will be able to pay every customer it has its money if all of them went to the bank
at the same time.
That is
you're
correct.
right.
Yes. That is correct.
So this is what happened with our fuel. There was a run.
Yeah.
So people who normally take 200 bob were now taking 4,000 shillings. Suddenly, there wasn't enough fuel for everybody. So, understanding this.
But who was coming out to calm us and tell us, no, there's going to be fuel? Because they did feel like there was a shortage. When I go to the pump price, I can't do my 1,000. I'm being told I can only fuel for 1,000. And then they block the lines. I mean,
you see, if you weren't panicking, you'd easily take the 1,000 shillings
and just go
on.
And
but
wait.
because you're panicking, you wanted more. You see your contribution to it.
True.
Remember, people who drive cars are adults in this country.
No.
Okay.
I'm not too sure about that, but okay.
And they're able to think.
Right.
Yes, and make decisions. Okay. When everybody wants a full tank, believe me, all the fuel you see in this petrol station, at some point, there'll be some sort of a problem. It doesn't quite work that way. What I'm saying is this. This isn't a blame game. We have a situation where the mistrust factor that we have with our government was coming into play.
Yep.
So we were not giving the government the opportunity to actually explain themselves and say, folks, this is not quite what. We put on our mistrust lenses and nothing the government was going to say was going to make sense. As far as we're concerned, they didn't pay, and that's why we have a problem.
You make some very excellent points.
Daniel, there's some action that you took on some oil marketing companies, and the reason that you are explaining, and was also being explained by the Cabinet Secretary, was the action of stock that should have been sold locally going into the region. Explain, what was that all about?
Yes, I think, as I said earlier on, the rule of thumb has always been 60% to support the Kenyan market, recognizing that the infrastructure that is being utilized is Kenyan, and 40% to support our brothers and sisters in the landlocked countries. So this has been the rule of thumb, 60% local, 40% transit. But because of two items. One is that Kenya is price regulated. Some of the landlocked countries are not price regulated. And this goes, again, to dispel the myth. I keep hearing that Uganda is cheaper than Kenya on the pump. It is not true. That, coupled by the impatience of some of the oil marketing companies to wait to get paid in 30 days, culminated in conversion of some of our local stock, some of the 60% to transit. So somebody, as an oil marketing company, and I think this is really sometimes a word that is not very good to use, but is greed. Because you have a guaranteed margin in our pump price formula of 12 shillings and 31 cents.
Yeah.
So you then take this product, take it to your neighboring country. They are going to pay you in cash, and they're going to pay you a premium. So that's really the reason.
So that was the game that was being played?
Correct.
And you observed this, and now you're taking action on that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, keep it here for more. Daniel Kipto is the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. He's graciously agreed to be with us for 2 hours so that we can also open up the phone lines in the next hour. You can call in, Give him your feedback, ask the questions. You want to understand what's happening in our fuel regulation and all marketing regulations. He's here. He's going to stay until 10 o'clock. We'll open up the conversations. We are on Spice FM around the country. 94.4 in Nairobi. Mombasa is 87.9. Kilifi is 97.7. Nakuru 96.0. Eldoret 96.7. Kisumu 102.5. And Nyeri is 90.9. We've been live on KTN Home, but now you can switch over to Spice FM or also YouTube and Facebook. Spice FM KE. It's 9 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Teacher Service Commission has fined 64 teachers for various offences. 38 of them were fired after the entire dismissal process was followed, including being given the opportunity to defend themselves, while the rest were fired after it was discovered that they had forged their academic papers during employment. TSC Chief Executive Officer Nancy Macharia said that the fired teachers will never be reinstated in the country's teachers' register. Now, Kenya Film and Classification Board has partnered with Kenya National Drama and Film Festival to roll out Cinema Mashinani program across the country to help identify and nurture new talents. KFCB Corporate Communications Manager Nelly Muluka said plans to kick off the project are at an advanced stage. Speaking during Kisumu Children Festival, Muluka lauded the program, adding that it was good to have children engaged in constructive work such as talent identification and development. She further lauded the theme chosen by the Kitch Fest organizers, adding that a good choice of theme was key as per current times and children were supposed to be protected and made aware of societal issues and how to handle them. Kitch Fest theme for 2022 is children and mental health. Now, United Democratic Alliance nominees in Mombasa County paraded themselves with Governor aspirant Hassan Omar chiding ODM for picking Mvita MP Abdul Samad Nasir, claiming he did not represent change. Omar, who is former Mombasa Senator, also underrated Nasir, claiming the outspoken MP could not bring forward critical political discourse against him and hence easy to beat. ODM picked Nasir after a 2-week standoff with businessman Suleiman Shabal over the Orange Party ticket. He spoke during a meeting with the UDA nominees at the party offices in Nyeri, Mombasa County. And claims of election rigging have risen in Uasin Gishu County, that is home to Deputy President William Ruto and a stronghold of the UDA party. Aspirants in Uasin Gishu County who were defeated in the recently concluded United Democratic Alliance primaries have demanded a rerun, claiming that the process was marred by massive irregularities. The aspirants led by their supporters to protest at the UDA offices in Eldoret, claiming that a few leaders who were declared winners did not legitimately obtain the tickets. 5 candidates for the Tarbo MP ticket, led by Willie Korir and David Songok, claimed that area MP Janet Sitiane did not win the primaries fairly and that voting was halted in some polling stations because ballot boxes were burnt. Julius Bitok, a Uasin Gishu gubernatorial aspirant, stated that the winners of the respective positions were already determined and that many candidates were favoured. The aspirants have threatened and specified action if UDA ignores their cry. Meanwhile, the UDA's National Elections Board said in a statement that the party had also made plans to resolve any disputes that arose from the election. Board Chair Anthony Moura said repeat elections for MP aspirants shall be conducted in Nakuru Town West and Rongai constituencies in Nakuru County, Mount Elgon in Bungoma, Turkana East and Turkana West in Turkana, as well as Moiben in Uasin Gishu. Successful candidates in the William Ruto-led party are expected to be presented with the final nomination certificates from April 23rd to April 25th. And the Biden administration will grant temporary deportation relief and work permits to Cameroonians living in the United States due to the ongoing conflict between the government forces and armed separatists in that country. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said the decision will apply to Cameroonians residing in the United States by April 14th and last a period of 18 months. An estimated 12,000 Cameroonians will be eligible for the status, according to the department. President Joe Biden has championed the temporary protected status program, which grants immigrants who cannot return to their country safely due to extraordinary circumstances such as violent conflict and natural disasters the ability to stay and work in the United States. In China, Eastern Airlines has restarted using Boeing 737-800 jetliners for commercial flights less than a month after a crash that killed 132 people on board and grounded over 200 of its aircraft. China Eastern Flight MU 5843, operated by the 3-year-old Boeing 737-800 aircraft, took off from the southwestern city of Kunming Sunday and landed at Chengdu, also in southwestern China. Another Boeing 737-800 jet conducted a test flight in Shanghai, where China Eastern is based. On March 21st, flight MU 5735, which was en route from Kunming to Guangzhou, crashed in the mountains of Guangxi and killed 123 passengers and 9 crew members in mainland China's deadliest aviation disaster in 28 years. China has retrieved both of the black boxes and has said it will submit the preliminary report to the UN Aviation Agency ICAO within 30 days of the event. This is Newswire. Dennis Sasseto. Good morning.
Nothing happening on the roads. Everybody is taking it easy today. It's a slow day, but okay, Mombasa Road, as you get to Imara Daima, it's slightly busy. I guess it's what's happening on the road. You know, there's road construction going on. The expressway is complete up there, but down here, the other free road is needs to be reworked on. Hopefully soon it'll be finished and completed and such, so the president can come and launch the road and launch the month of April. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority boss is here, so he'll also tell us when the president is going to launch cheaper 15% bills on power, because that should also have happened in the first quarter of 2022. That is why we are still in March. That's why we are still in March.
Yes.
We are not going into April until all those things happen. Yeah. Keep it here. If there's anything that we ought to talk about and we need to alert other road users about, please tag us on Twitter at SpiceFMKE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
7 minutes after 9, Kenya's biggest conversation on the 18th day of March 2022, a month before Angela Angwenyi's birthday.
Hey.
Right?
A month before. Okay.
Yes.
I'll catch up with you.
It's a month to your birthday.
Concentrate.
She just heard, she heard birthday.
I can't remember. I'm a bit worried. I can't remember your own birthday. I'm getting a bit worried.
It's my birthday today. Did you wish me a happy birthday, DG?
Sure, it's her birthday.
That's what she
My
says.
brother, it is her birthday.
Can we call my mother?
If next week she tells us it's her birthday,
we will take it.
Happy birthday then, Angela.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you.
It works. It works. We have in the studio with us Angela Angwenyi. She's our guest host today. Angela is everything in radio, in broadcast, in TV, and also the DG of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, IPRA. Daniel Kipchoo. Crime and Justice on Showmax, showing. So if you just have 760 shillings, subscribe to Showmax. That's as low as you can get. Start from there. 760, you get Showmax. Then you can look at other packages, which increases your kind of offering. For example, if you want live sports, if you want live news, then you pay a little bit extra and you get all that. But for 760, you get Crime and Justice, plus other very, very good, very well produced stuff. And you said you love the production.
I do. Okay, so let me tell you what I'm watching, because I'm a big TV content buff. I've watched Younger, Crime and Justice. Hey, My Empress is a good show on Showmax. It is they didn't give it as much budget as Crime and Justice, but those girls of My Empress, Noni, and so on and so forth, I like it. I think it's very witty, it's young. They got some nice jokes in there. I love that show. They single Kiasi, though I'm like, they should have been more creative. Because there's like 3 single Kiasis. There's one South African, one West African, and then they brought us the same storyline. I'm like, come on
singles. Singles.
Me, I'm single Kia.
I just want to tell you that I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
I know.
Yes.
No,
you and I both.
No, but Titi, the more you get to know me, the more I'll educate you on these things.
Daniel, are you single Kiasi?
Wait.
No.
Not
He
at
is
all.
married Kiasi.
Very good.
Do you have Showmax account? Are we getting you one today?
The
Showmax.
760 a month.
760.
Showmax, the 760.
Don't be that guy, City.
He
I'm
has
that guy.
Showmax.
I think Angela, you can get me Showmax.
I'll get you Showmax.
But make sure it comes with leaf.
So you have enough time to watch.
Yes.
Crime and Justice Season 2 is on Showmax. City, the day's proverb?
Yes, indeed. Anyone who sees beauty and does not look at it will soon be poor.
Like Showmax. Thank you very much. You see the beauty, you watch the content, Baba.
Okay.
That?
What?
What's wrong with both of you?
All right, so we want to open up the phone lines now so that we can all have a conversation with the DG of IPRA, who is in the studio, 0719-012-600. Several questions here. So number one, every 14th, new prices. You announce new prices. What happens if you go into a petrol station and you find that the price that they're selling you at is different from what IPRA announced?
Yes, I think that's a very good question, Eric. I think this is a challenge that we've seen the last 2 weeks. First, it's an offence by law to sell petroleum products above the price that have been set by us as IPRA, as the regulator. This is an offence that is punishable by law. And really, this is one of the areas that I want to request, because you've given me this platform, for Kenyans to be able to identify such stations, the retail sites, be able to communicate that with us so that then we're able to take the appropriate action from a legal standpoint. We really urge Kenyans, and you can do this either by calling us on phone, being able to write us an email.
What are those numbers?
Looking at our social media platforms and tagging us and giving us evidence, for instance, a receipt or an M-Pesa message, and we shall take the appropriate enforcement action. We've actually issued a notice to retailers, I'll be able to share that with you now, that has asked retailers not to retail above the maximum recommended pump price. As I said, we do have guaranteed margins because it's a price-regulated regime. So the oil marketers, the retailers are adequately compensated for
They're
the risks
sure that they
they
will
have
make
assumed.
money.
They will make money. So it's really, not to belabor the point, agreed on the part of a retailer to be selling product above
So can you
what is
force
the recommended pump price.
to refund me if I show you a receipt that they overcharged?
Yes.
And then there's going to be measures taken against that
Yes,
particular...
we'll take enforcement action against them.
Let me ask you another question quickly. Sorry, before we go to the whatever. The Ruby CEO, was he deported?
Yes, he was.
Why?
I think that's a question best left for government, not for the regulator.
But you're government. Why are you acting like you're not government? Some days you're government. You're part of government.
There's ministry, there's regulator.
He's government. He's government.
Actually,
we know this government. He should know. These are your people.
Actually, not quite. Not quite. Your child is your child, but your child is not you.
This one is a child of government.
Yes, let me repeat. Your child is your child, but your child is not you.
Are your parents separated? Yes. Why?
Because
because they're separated.
So you're
Ask
not
Mom.
at liberty to say why he was deported?
No.
Who should we be asking this question?
I believe it would be government, either the Director of Immigration or the Minister of Immigration itself. That would be Interior. Maybe the Cabinet Secretary would have a line of sight. Probably
What you can do, Daniel, is you can tell us what recommendation have you made? What observation did you make on this particular company, and what recommendation have you
No, as I
made?
said, I don't
what
want to
action
go,
are you taking?
I don't want to go into the details of any specifics of an oil company, because one, they're all our licensees, and we have almost close to 100 of them. Some, as I've said, have acted in support of government based on the conversations we've had, and others have not. So I wouldn't want to go into the details of a commercial entity, and that would not be fair.
So was it based on what happened within the last 3 weeks, or?
I believe so.
Fair enough. Victor is on the line. Victor, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're fine, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a comment. You see, with this situation, I think we need to have some sense of national pride, and because all this is setting a very bad precedent where people can just come in our country and sabotage the whole economic system. And if we don't do anything about it, if, as you said, we just stop blaming each other and just do something about it, that will really save us from a lot of issues in the future, because we are looking at possible capital crime, and once this slips away and guys don't get punished for it, this thing will be happening repeatedly. So I think all stakeholders involved, we need to do something. The guys in power really need to do something before
Victor,
this blows out of hand. Yeah.
What would you like to see done by those in authority?
What I'd like to see done is that the percentages that were put for regional supply and those for local supply should be maintained. And also what I'd like to see is the stocking density that was kept for reserve should be maintained. Like you are looking at a 25-30 day reserve for the fuel to absorb some of these shocks. That's what I want to see done. And I want to see the people who are involved in this artificial shortage, I want to see some sanctions taken on them so that they actually feel the pinch of what the common Kenyan was feeling.
All right. Thank you very much, Victor. Daniel, how do you respond to that?
Yes, I think really from Victor's standpoint, I think really the kind of patriotic Kenyans that we require, and I think from a governmental standpoint, from a regulator particularly, is that we are mandated by law to regulate the market and to enforce. We are diplomatic, but also we apply the law without fear or favor. So we're actually going to follow through on these enforcement actions. Where there have been malpractices, we shall actually follow them through and ensure that the offenders or perpetrators are then prosecuted. We'll also work with the industry and also work with the government to ensure that this does not happen again, and also ensure that we take the lessons, as Victor said, in terms of building up strategic stocks, also ensuring that we empower the national oil company so that then we're able to have a state-owned entity that is able to regulate the market. But maybe, Eric, with your permission, you'd ask me a question in terms of how do you report, particularly when you see an incident that is contrary to the law, but particularly in this case, hoarding or selling above the maximum pump price? You can be able to reach EPRA on our hotline, which is 0709 336 000. I'll repeat again, our hotline is 0709 336 000. You could be able to also drop us an email at info@epra.go.ke. I'll repeat that again, info@epra.go.ke. But you could also reach us on our social media space. Our handle at Facebook is EPRA Kenya. You could be able to tag us on there. And on Twitter is EPRA_KE. And you're able then to get us on those platforms. And I encourage Kenyans to be able to report so that then we can take the appropriate action.
All right. So EPRA_KE on Twitter, EPRA Kenya on Facebook, info@epra.go.ke, email, and the phone line again, 0709 336 000.
I was like, you got that quickly?
Like that.
Aki, you're sharp.
Kimani in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning, team. How are you today?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Not bad at all. Now, I have a statement to make and a question to the DG. And my first question would be, we all know that the stabilization fund is there specifically to cushion Kenyans, yeah? And this is being deducted as a tax for every Kenyan that goes to the pump. But we saw the president the other day signing a supplementary budget to release these funds now to the OMCs. So if at all this kitty is there and it's been replenished every other day, a Kenyan goes to the pump, why then did the president have to go to Treasury, and do all this, signing the supplementary budget to make OMCs access their funds? I mean, it should be directly accessible. Funds should just be there and released by Treasury to OMCs. Why go through the whole supplementary budget and signing and releasing these funds? And we've had stories that indeed some of these funds have been used to pay off loans, Chinese loans, and build some roads here and there. So that is my question. Number two, I work for an OMC, and I can tell you for the months of February and March, we have not received these funds. I'll tell you for sure. So the good DG should kindly tell us what is happening, because this stalemate was caused by us OMCs not been paid our dues. And I can assure you the months of February, March, and now April, we have not received these funds from the government. Thank you very much. And
So we're talking about month of February. Had you been paid for
Month-
January?
January, yes, we got, but February, March, and now April, we have not received these funds.
So by the time we're
And this
starting to
settlement-
experience, sorry, Kimani, by the time we're starting to experience the shortage at the pumps about 3 weeks ago, we were still in March. How many days delay had you experienced in terms of receiving your dues?
January had not come through, and February and March.
Okay.
So, but January came through. Now we are talking of February, March, and April, which we are in right now. And this settlement will continue and is bound to continue if the government does not release these funds to OMCs, because OMCs have overheads.
Right.
OMCs have loans, have taxes to pay, have employees to pay. Some OMCs actually have been forced to release their workers, half pay leave or forced leave without pay. Because how do you match up with these costs, day-to-day runnings of these companies, and you don't have any money coming through?
And a final clarification.
And government has actually now raised this figure now to 40 shillings for diesel in stabilization and 29 shillings for super. And we already have outstanding bills that have not been paid. And now they've increased the stabilization per litre to 40 shillings for diesel and 29 for super. So let the good DG kindly explain to us, because we are not happy down here. And the government is coming with all manners of threats that if you don't release fuel to the markets, we are going to sanction you, and we need to know a clear way forward.
The way forward. Thank you, Kimani.
Yeah, a very clear way forward, yeah.
Thank you, Kimani. Let's hear from the DG. So he says March and April not paid, February are also not paid for all marketing companies. He works for one. Is this a situation that you're aware of?
Well, I think Kimani has really put some very good points across. Yes, what was for January, which was paid, is the 8.2 billion. As I said on Thursday, this was confirmed by the minister that the PS actually did pay the balance of February and March. And this was paid out on Thursday. Probably has not hit the accounts of the OMCs, but will tomorrow morning. And this goes to the point that I'd made, is that a government is a responsible government. And when you talk about arrears not being older than 60 days, and you're in private business, you're in commercial business, these are funds that have been paid, now to the tune of 49 billion. And this is a question that we've been asking, is why the jitteriness from oil marketing companies that government will not honor its obligations? The Kenyan government always honors its obligations. And this is demonstrated by the fact that 49 billion has been paid. So I really have difficulty in understanding what the jitteriness is about. I understand the challenges of working capital and cash flows that Kimani is putting across. But 30 days to process an invoice is not outside the norm. In terms of his comment that this standoff will continue, the position of the regulator, and I believe that of government as well, is that it shall not continue because all marketers will comply with their licensing requirements, will comply with the law. And it is not fair for Kenyans that all marketing companies and those who work for all marketing companies to say this shall continue if we are not paid and paid on time, or paid to our preference. I think that's the right word. To our preference. So I think we should be able to be...
I guess I can understand where he's coming from. If the price stabilization was 20 shillings and you experienced the delays in disbursement of the payments, now the price stabilization has gone to 40 bob. What do you expect?
No, there is a cash flow challenge there. And I think this is, to be honest, is something that I need to take back and have a conversation with the government. As I said, it is not us, the regulator, that pays. We calculate, make the computation, advise government, and government then pays. But he's actually correct. When the delta is bigger, then means you're in the whole deeper and a bigger number as an oil marketing company. So there may be an opportunity to accelerate. But it should not be a question of will we be paid? It's a question of when will we be paid? And it has been 30 to 60 days. And again, going back to the question on the supplementary budget, there's a framework within which government spends its money, which is the Public Finance Management Act. There's also the Constitution. So there is a budget-making process. Even if you have public money, and I think this was mentioned by the PS last Thursday, you cannot spend it. If it's Daniel's money, it's Eric's money, I can pay you right now out of my pocket, but there is an administrative process, there's a legal process towards payment.
That has got to be followed.
That has to be followed, including, for instance, budgeting. And this is what the president signed off as a supplementary budget to then enable this money to be spent within the law.
Which is what Kimani is asking. So if this stabilization fund is there, why do we need to get to a point of the supplementary budget to release funds?
No, the supplementary budget is part of government process. It is not unique to the petroleum industry. It is not unique.
But it seemed like it was a bailout because you guys were cash strapped and you needed to pay these guys so that things can regularize. Was it a bailout?
No, it wasn't. The conversation on supplementary 2 started in December. We did appear in Parliament in January to defend our position with the Energy Committee, went to the Finance Committee. The supplementary budget actually should have been signed sometime in February as Parliament went on recess. But that process was not closed and Parliament ended up going for recess for 2 weeks. Before then, they had to come back and then pass a supplementary for His Excellency the President to be able to sign it. So it's just a need for Kenyans to understand that there is a process that is governed in law in terms of how do you spend public money. And there is a process which is both legal and administrative in nature.
So you foresaw this. That's why you applied for the supplementary budget.
Back end in
but
December.
It took too long. Is it that it took too long?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
0719-012-600 if you've got questions for the IPRA Director General, Daniel Kipto, who's here with us in the studio. Lone Wolf is asking on Twitter, why did you stop publishing the maximum wholesale prices for fuel? Do you know that this has killed independent petroleum dealers?
Yes. Do you want me to take that now?
Yes.
Yes, I think the wholesale price, we do have the mandate within law to publish the maximum wholesale and the maximum retail price. There has been a structural issue when we introduce stabilization. Because stabilization, as I said, the margin for the retailers, both for wholesale and retail, is 12 shillings and 31 cents. When we are publishing the price and we are stabilizing beyond that margin, then you get into the realm of negative numbers. And administratively, when you're compensating, we compensate the importer. So it is the importer then who will then be able to
pass it down.
And because it's a negative number, apportionment, particularly between the wholesale and the retailer, becomes a challenge structurally and also administratively. But I just want to acknowledge on this fact that there has been a challenge where the oil majors have been starving independents of product, but also selling product to them equal to the retail price or even beyond. And I think this is a structural problem that we as a regulator are looking to fix with the Independent Dealers Association, also with the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, on a twofold basis. One, taking and holding to account the oil importers who are selling product to the wholesalers at equal to the retail price or even beyond which is illegal, where you're selling it to this maximum retail price is also anti-competitive and also does not meet the regulatory thresholds. We'll also be taking that up. But I think in terms of reprieve, we are now having a conversation on ring fencing product that will be specially allocated to the independent dealers, and particularly in West Kenya. As I said, West Kenya is a bit of a challenge. But going forward, having the national oil company work with these independents, and there's also conversations currently going on between the Independent Outlets Association, SPOAC, and the National Oil Company, so that then when the National Oil Company takes up its 30%, it's able then to service the independents. And independents play a very important role, and we do appreciate those sentiments.
I think you may need to explain again the relationship between the importer up to the retailer when it comes to the margins. When you say that you have fixed the margins, what exactly, how much does each player here get between the person who's importing to the person who's selling to me at the pump?
Okay, I'll come back to you in terms of just the value chain from the transport, the transport component on pipeline, the transport component on road, which is bridging to this fuel station, what the wholesale ideally margin would be, what the retail margin would be, and also the petroleum construction margin, because we have about 3 shillings, which is investment margin to allow for investment in the retail stations and the recouping of that investment from a capital standpoint.
Okay. That's a good one. So let's take a break on that note. Sindio?
Go break.
Okay. Okay, so as we take this break, let's remind you about what Colgate has been doing around the country. Colgate, in association with Well Boring, a UK NGO, they have been sinking wells in some counties in the country, and they're saying, okay, this is what we're doing. We're going to communities that have water scarcity. We identify those communities. We go to the schools in those communities. We sink wells, and then the water is accessible by everybody in the community. This is a win-win for everybody. Schools have access to water, communities have access to water, everybody has access to water because it's a big issue. And they'd like us to participate in that, in helping them do all these things, which is by going to the Naivas supermarket. When you go there, buy a tube of Colgate, and then you will be able to, when you go to Naivas supermarket in any day, today, tomorrow, the day after, buy a tub of Colgate. Part of that money goes towards this particular job, the job is making sure that they sink 30 wells by the end of this calendar year. 29 minutes to 9. Keep it here for more. 0719-012-600 for the conversation with DG Daniel Kipto.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. We are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so the weather again. Nairobi, is it going to rain today? Yes, in some parts of the city, and then some parts will be sunny throughout the day. 25 are the highs and the lows of 16. Mombasa expects light rains throughout the day today at 31, highs and lows of 26. Malindi, the same, heavy storms today. Thunderstorms in Malindi, highs of 32 and lows of 27. Nakuru, partly sunny day at 26 and lows of 15. Kisumu, sunny day as well at 29 and lows of 19. Kakamega, 24 highs and lows of 14. Eldoret, 28 highs and lows of 16. Kampala, light rain today at 27, lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, sunny day, 32 highs and lows of 25. Kinshasa, mostly sunny day at 33 and lows of 22. Lagos, Nigeria, light rains at 32 and lows of 23. Johannesburg, mostly cloudy day at 17 and lows of 9. London is going to be a sunny day. 17 is the high and low of 7. Clear skies in New York at 11 and lows of 6. Paris, France, sunny day at 19 and lows of 6. And Beijing, China, sunny day at 23 and low of 7. So people are still just talking about where you can get fuel, but it doesn't appear like we have such a serious issue within Nairobi this morning on access to fuel. But if there's anything that you think we ought to talk about and alert everybody else, please tag us on Twitter at SpiceFMKE.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Business news on Spice FM.
Good morning, I'm Winfrey Owino.
The Kenya Flour Council says the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict has negatively impacted Kenya's flours export. Clement Tulezi, the chief executive officer of KFC, said that orders for cut flours and ornamental plants to Russia and Ukraine have been cancelled since February 24th when the conflict began. According to KFC, Kenya exported to Russia and Ukraine cut flowers and ornamentals valued at approximately 18 billion shillings in 2021. A court has nullified the sacking of former Uchumi Supermarket CEO Jonathan Siano. The court has also awarded Mr. Siano 6.5 million shillings for leave days, gratuity and unused leave days. Mr. Siano was sacked in June 2015 on allegations of gross misconduct and negligence that left the listed retailer owing suppliers about 1 billion shillings. High Court Judge Stella Ruto said the dismissal was invalid because he had resigned 2 days before his ouster. Meanwhile, as demand for cotton in the country rises and the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative takes shape, textile industries in the country are investing heavily on new machine technology, thus opening doors to increased quality productivity, profits and competitiveness in the international market. The introduction of BT cotton in the country, a new variety that is clean, white right from the farm, has awoken the textile industry, with cotton farmers vowing to grow more to try and satisfy the rising demand for cotton and its products in the country. Well, that's it for Spice Business. My name is Winfrey Owino. Enjoy your holiday.
Business news, keeping you up to date on all your money matters.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, so 25 minutes to 10, Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. In the studio this morning is
SpiceFM.
Muga, our guest host today, Angela Ngwenyi.
Good morning.
And our guests for the last 1.5 hours is Daniel Kiptoo, the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, IPRA. And we want you to ask him questions. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Very many questions, even on social media. For example, Mocho is taking you back. Let the DG explain why oil prices in Uganda are cheaper compared to Kenya. Please address that.
It must be the taxes. They take less.
Again.
Well, the oil prices in Uganda are not cheaper.
Uh-huh. Today, as we speak.
What are the... Do you know the price a pump?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so he's going to actually clarify
He's going to open that and let us know. 0719-012-600. The Director General of IPRA is in the studio. Let's give him that moment to get us the oil prices. Mm-hmm. How much is it going for in Uganda? How much is it going for at the pump in Kenya? Why not for the price stabilization? How much would we be paying for? Would it still be? So, you have it?
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
So, what we are having, Kenya shilling equivalent on super today in Tanzania is 144 shillings and 72 cents.
144.72 in TZ.
In TZ. Mm-hmm.
Right.
In UG, we have 163 shillings and 20 cents, Kenya shilling equivalent. That's in Uganda.
Uh-huh.
In Rwanda, this is just on the super grid, 154 shillings and 81 cents in Rwanda.
Mm.
Further afield in South Africa, you have 172 shillings and 26 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And in Zambia, 175 shillings and 42 cents.
Mm.
So there we have it.
In Zambia?
Yes.
And in Kenya?
In Kenya, before the 9 shilling increase, we were at 134 shilling and 72 cents. And we're now at 142.
So we're cheaper, actually, than Tanzania and Uganda.
Yes,
okay. If we had not put in the price stabilization mechanism, how much would we be paying?
You would be paying 172 shillings.
172. Now, these countries that you've mentioned, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, they don't have price stabilization. It's open market.
They do not have price regulation. It's an open market.
It's open
system.
market.
Yes.
So with open market, Uganda is 163.20. With a regulated market in Kenya, the price is 172 shillings.
No, it is 144 shillings in this pricing cycle. This is with the 9 shillings and 90 cents increase.
No. Let's remove the whole... Let's say there was no stabilization.
Yeah.
If
so he's saying it's still more expensive.
If there was no stabilization...
You would be paying 173 shillings and 70 cents.
173?
Yes.
10 shillings more expensive than Uganda would be paying.
That's correct.
That's a question. Why?
I think this is a function of taxes. And I think when you take out the building blocks, because Uganda product comes through Kenya. Mm-hmm. So if you just look at the landed cost plus the cost of transportation, Uganda will always be more expensive than Kenya.
Yes.
Because the further you move from the port, the more expensive it is because of your transportation costs.
Yep.
But even in the disparity in taxes, Uganda today is still more expensive. And this talks to the reason why,
Daniel,
in our view,
Uganda is not more expensive. The price in Kenya is 172 shillings. It's only that we are getting some money from the kitty that we had contributed, from our Harambee kitty,
which is still our
to
money.
cushion us. But the price today in Uganda is
It's
172, which is 10 shillings more expensive than the price in Uganda, 163.
But are we talking about the price on the pump or the price as it ought to be? Because
as it ought to be.
As it ought to be. Yes.
Yes.
If you look at it from the standpoint as it ought to be, yes. But it is more expensive to land product in Mombasa. This is the point, to land product from Mombasa in Kampala than it is to land product from Mombasa in Nairobi.
Yep.
And I think that's the principle. Before we get into the conversation on taxation regimes, which are different country to country.
Did they have this 3-week crisis? All our
In
countries,
Uganda.
in Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania.
No, they did not.
So now, how are you explaining that we are suffering and we are the core, we are the base?
We are the 60%.
We are the ones who are supplying everybody else. And
Yes.
And they don't have an issue, we have an issue.
And we have an issue, I think, and that's why we have been having this conversation with all marketing companies, because it was not a challenge related to unavailability of product. It is a challenge that was related particularly to hoarding and unwillingness to sell, as you've heard from Kimani, who was on the call a few minutes ago.
I want to come back to that issue, Daniel. Are our taxes too high?
Well,
okay. If you look at let's look at the percentage at the pump. How much is going into tax at the pump? If you compare Kenya and Uganda and Rwanda and Tanzania, our percentage is close to 49% of pump price being taxes and levies. How would you compare Uganda and Tanzania?
I think we are taxed a bit more, but I think this needs to be looked at within the context of a wider context. I think it's more of a macro issue, because if you look at your taxation regime, first, as I said, this is within the purview of Parliament and probably from a policy standpoint, the National Treasury. So I may not be able to speak to that much, but I think maybe in a general context, we need to look at it in Kenya and ask ourselves a question is how do we compare in Kenya as compared to the region from a GDP standpoint, also from an infra standpoint. I had you, Eric, talking about an expressway just outside your office a few minutes ago. And we need to think about it within that context of where we place in a country and how does government fund this infrastructure. And this is me speaking not as a DG APRA, but as a Kenyan.
As a Kenyan taxpayer.
As a Kenyan taxpayer. So I think context is very important. When we talk about taxation, we need to look at it within context.
That is a rabbit hole. I mean, when you
start going down.
Yes, because, and the DG is right. When Kipto, you are right. The thing is, we need someone from Treasury to come here and discuss this with us, because it doesn't need a genius to understand that we're just about the most taxed people on this continent.
We are.
You don't need to understand it. And the moment you talk taxation, you're going to ask, okay, why are we being taxed so highly? What is it that justifies the taxations? Because countries where such high taxations are justified, services are provided to justify the taxation. That's why I said rabbit hole. Because we start going along that path, we then introduce a completely new discussion, and we're going to move away from the discussion that we wanted to have on petroleum. So, let me stick to petroleum.
Okay. Let's hear from Zachary, and then you'll come and you were to give us the breakdown of who plays what role along the value chain. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning, people. We had to wait for a while.
Don't worry, Zachary. You're our man.
And I'm happy. Now, let me first of all clarify you people there. You, the two of you now, I know you.
The two of us.
The two of us.
Eric and CT.
Muga and Mr. Eric. But now, there's that guy, the DG.
Yes.
When I grow up and form a briefcase political party, I'm going to make him the spokesperson, yeah? He's doing good job at actually explaining to us. So he's a good PR guy, yeah. Then there is this lady, Agwenyi. Can you start speaking slow? Some of us are paid order and we are not about
Oh, am I speaking too quickly for you?
Yeah, you are too quick.
I'm sorry, darling. I'll slow down.
Go slow. In this adult conservation, we, like the way Eric and whatever are speaking, yeah. Now, let me say this, yeah. there is a guy who called and said, we have not been paid the February, March, and now April, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And there is now whatever our DG is saying, yeah?
Yeah.
So, for us, the consumers, it is his word against it out there, the oil marketers, what they are saying, yeah? So, if I may ask him, what is the size of the container that I needed to buy so that I can stock fuel, more fuel, petrol, or whatever I use, yeah? Before the next phase now, that there is no oil, there is no...
Wait. Are you asking how much you ought to like store in your own house?
Yeah,
Somewhere.
because when I take his word against whatever the guys, the marketers are saying, and you have got an example of that guy who was called, he said, we have not received February, March, and April. So I think being the wise consumer of petrol that I am, I should stock some, have some, whatever, before we see a repeat of what we saw in the last 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Let him advise me.
Tongue in cheek. Thank you very much, Zachary. He's saying, now, the way things are going, I just need to know how much fuel I need to buy.
No, I think really this goes back to the point that had been made before around trust.
Yeah.
And I think maybe to start from first by defending myself. One, I don't think I'm in that realm. First, I'm a technical person. I'm a technocrat. I'm not
in the realm of politics.
In the realm of politics, actually very far from it. I love my peace. I love my weekends. And I want to watch my rugby on a weekend.
You see your predecessor?
Yes.
You see your predecessor?
Yes.
He had told me those same words.
And now he's running?
He's a member of parliament.
No, unless we meet at Queen's. Probably that's the most you'll find me.
But you're very well spoken. You know the right things to say, that's what he means.
But in terms of
we're talking about Oimeke, the former DG. He's now a member of parliament. And he will be no, I'm a technocrat. Anyway, Daniel.
Yes.
All the best.
No, we're here with you, Eric. So you will tell me one day. But in terms of trust, and I think going back to the statement that had been made in terms of trust, we need to trust that the regulator and the government are doing the right thing, and they're being honest and transparent, like being on this show to tell you this is what has worked, this is not what has worked, and this is how the outlook looks like. In terms of storing fuel in containers, I think first I want to talk to this because it's a HSE issue. Because you have plastics, these plastic jerrycans, they are made out of petroleum products, and they do produce static electricity. And going to this issue of storing product in homes, in your vehicles, in your boots. I've seen some photos of pickup trucks full of 20-litre jerrycans. It's really a hazardous problem because this could cause a fire, because this static energy could cause a fire. So a spark and a fire. So I think we need to desist as Kenyans from this run on bank, so to speak. We need to believe the numbers that we've been given, that there is sufficient product, that the government is taking steps to ensure that product continues to flow on a regular basis. We as a regulator will continue to enforce the license requirement of oil marketing companies, but even will continue engaging with oil marketing companies to ensure that the challenges that they face, which are real in some instances, are addressed. And as I said earlier on, we had addressed them. And we'll continue to engage with them because the government must work with its stakeholders jointly, including us as the regulator. So this engagement is a continuous process and will continue. I think just to again make the point again to Kimani, and this was a statement that was made by the PS on Thursday, that the balance and arrears that were owed have been paid. And I think I just want to repeat that in terms of advising on what he should do is he should continue with his normal course of business. If you used to fuel 500 bob, just fuel 500 bob, because tomorrow when you go back to the station, you will still find fuel. So there is no need to panic buy. There is no need to hoard. We shall continue working as a regulator with our stakeholders, the oil marketing companies, with the government, make and take the appropriate advice from a policy and regulatory standpoint, and give that advice to the policymakers and be able to enforce the law to ensure that those who do not comply are brought to book. And I think really, going back again to the statement, we need to trust what the institutions are telling you as a Kenyan, so that then we're able to answer your questions. You get an understanding of what the issues are, what is being done to address, so that then you have the comfort to go about your daily business.
With the entry of DRC into the East African community, their population, the demand that they're going to have. What preparations have we made? We're still in the oil industry to cater for this demand, because we certainly are going to find ourselves with a far greater trading geographical area, probably greater demands. Yes, I know, as we speak right now, there is a 40 billion oil terminus that is about to be commissioned at KPA. I understand this. But what exactly will that be able to do in terms of changing, should we say, the storage of fuel within the country, the expansion of the business within East and Central Africa?
Yes, I think the project you're talking about is KOT2. This is Kipevu Oil Terminal 2,
yes,
where there are 4 jetties being built by the government to the tune, as you said, of 40 billion. And this is a KPA-led project, but really this is a petroleum infrastructure project, because these 4 berths will complement the 1 berth that we currently have. One of the bigger challenges we've had over time, which has been almost minimized, is the problem of demurrage, because you can only offload 1 vessel at a time. But now you'll be able to offload 4 vessels at a time. And one of these berths also has an LPG line, which is going to also help us in terms of bringing LPG into the market at the port of Mombasa. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and I know Kenya Pipeline is looking into expansion of its capacity, particularly in enhancing its line capacity between Nairobi and Mombasa, and having more storage depots inland into West Kenya. As you correctly put it, if you look at Ethiopia now, Ethiopia is also landlocked, so to speak. You do have a population of about 100 million. You have Eastern DRC with a similar number of people, if not more. And this is a market for Kenya. And I think this is where we need to look at as a country, but particularly the commercial arms like Kenya Pipeline, who are our licensees. So from wider standpoint, this is where we see that there's a lot of opportunity for growth, and there's a lot of opportunity for investment of infrastructure, and government and also private sector, because I don't think government will be able to invest into all this infrastructure. There has to be engagements on a public-private partnership basis. Private sector also investing and coming to us as a regulator to be able to license as common user facilities. There is a lot of opportunity for growth in terms of storage capacity. And this will also be answering the question of security of supply that had been answered later on, so that then we increase our minimum operational stocks number of days, and also we increase our strategic stocks. This is really how this will work hand in hand.
Where I'm going with this question was this. Remember earlier on when I asked about the refineries, your reference point was economies of scale. Meaning, there needs to be a particular wherewithal for a refinery to make sense.
Yep.
Now, with our expanded market, with our expanded reach, would we be able to garner the economies of scale that will enable us
to put up our own refinery?
Yes.
Yes, we would. Yes, we would. But it's a conversation not only for Kenya, it's a conversation for the region. And I know Uganda are in conversations on a refinery in Hoima, with part of the crude oil production up in Uganda. And I think this is more of a regional conversation rather than a Kenya-specific conversation.
Okay.
So Andrew is asking, when the DG says IPRA fixes margins along the fuel value chain, does that mean that you're guaranteeing profit for all players involved with providing fuel to consumers?
We actually ensure that any prudently incurred cost is recovered. Mm-hmm. So we are not guaranteeing margins, because what we set is a cap, is a maximum wholesale and a maximum retail price. So what we set is the cap, but because of the market forces, you're able then to charge a bit less to allow you to gain market share. So we are not guaranteeing margins, but setting a cap, but ensuring all prudently incurred costs along the value chain are compensated.
Are there times when you see an oil marketing company actually selling below the cap?
Yes, we have.
But just for a period, like, they're running a promo today, come and get five bob cheaper. But that's all.
Yes. That's probably just, and I think it's more driven towards gaining market share. But over time, with increased competition, and particularly when the national company plays its role, you will see the national company, an oil company, being the one setting the bar. So that then, if the national company becomes cheaper, then you also have to drive your prices as a commercial entity cheaper, so that then you're able to keep your market share. And that's the reason now the national company needs to come in to be able to play its role.
Okay. So I want to come back to the question that Citi had, which was on Kenya Pipeline, and then looking at the capacity to service the region. So we know that now KPA, Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Railways are all under ICDC, which is one huge entity and looking at driving our infrastructure. What is happening in terms of just increasing our capacity to service this region in terms of, okay, so now we know there's a terminal, there's a talk, you've just mentioned the talk of expanding the capacity of our pipeline. But in terms of even taking the product from the port of Mombasa to the farthest parts of the region, what are we doing as a country to make sure that we position ourselves well there? Because as you say, we are competing with others who have a port, say Tanzania.
Well, yes, I think efficiency from two standpoints. Efficiency in the time it takes to move product and efficiency from a cost standpoint. I think that's what makes Kenya competitive. And as you're saying, we're competing with other ports in the region. In terms of expansion, I know Kenya Pipeline has been doing a feasibility to see how they can then develop spur lines. Because today you have a backbone of a pipeline that runs from Mombasa to Nairobi, on to Nakuru, to Eldoret, and a spur line from Sinendet all the way to Kisumu. KPC has invested in a port jetty at Lake Victoria in Kisumu to be able to move product by barge across the lake. There is also conversations in terms of spur lines to Nanyuki from Nakuru into other hinterland areas, into Kisii, and those are under the feasibility stage. What will that do is that it will take product closer to the people to reduce the bridging cost in terms of moving the product by truck from the depot to the retail station. But I think also KPC is also having conversations on how it develops into the Ugandan market and has presence and a footprint in Uganda with a facility on the other side in Uganda at Port Bell. There's also conversations at a bilateral level in terms of expanding into southwestern Uganda to service the Rwandese and the Congolese market. And this what we are privy to from a regulatory standpoint as to what Kenya Pipeline is doing as a commercial entity. But again, also just to the point that private sector is also coming to this space quite strongly. And this is where we come in as a regulator, because we'll be able to set the tariffs as to how much these private terminals will be able to charge based on their level of investment, their rate of return, and the risks that they've assumed. And it's really a joint partnership between government and private sector, so that the private sector can invest, knowing that these are their returns, which will be set by the regulator, that they're reasonable returns, that we balance the interests of them as investors and also of the consumers. And I think it's that balance and that environment that needs to be created for us to be able to benefit from the economies of scale that you're talking to, and also from the market that is expanded EAC today.
Let's conclude this with the next 3 minutes by you telling us about power bills. The first quarter has come and gone, Bona DG, and you have not told us how much cheaper our electricity is going to get.
Eric, I didn't think you called me here for power prices, but since I'm here, we did, as the regulator, on the 7th of January, gazette a 15% reduction in your power bills, and you have not seen Kenyans. And this is one of the areas that you really have to commend the regulator and the government, and we don't hear much of that. I remember seeing a clip of a gentleman who was here, who's a good friend of mine and is always in our office, called Isaac. And Dereba, and he was talking about it will not happen, it can never happen, 15% reduction.
And then it happened.
Okay. And everyone went quiet. And here we are today, a few weeks to the end of the quarter, and the question is, where's the other additional 15%? I think I just want to assure Kenyans that it's an ongoing conversation between us as the regulator and also with the government in terms of how do we operationalize the second 15% reduction.
What's the hold-up? What is it that is creating the hold-up? Because something is creating the hold-up. For the president to have announced and told us he was going to reduce it by that percent, somebody had advised him and told him it was possible. So,
on the first 15%, just to be clear, the first 15% was on account of operational efficiency from the utility Kenya Power. This is a reduction of the commercial losses and the technical losses, the system losses. The second 15% tranche was also to come from some reforms that were going to happen, which are still in the works, including the renegotiation of power purchase agreements that is in the works. That is not within our purview as the regulator, because the commercial agreement, which is the power purchase agreement negotiated between the utility Kenya Power and the independent power producer, comes to us as the regulator to moderate. So we don't have a line of sight of that conversation. That was where the second 15% tranche is going to come from. So that is a conversation that is currently ongoing. I don't see that there's an impasse, but it's an ongoing conversation between the IPPs, the government through the ministry, the National Treasury, the utility, and the IPPs. And this is also looked at within the context of the ongoing reforms that are currently happening in the sector. So it's work in progress. It is not an issue of it having stalled.
So it'll come in. It'll happen.
It'll happen.
And the day we see the statement from Daniel Kiptoo saying this is what's happening in terms of power bills coming down by 15%, then we can say, hallelujah, we're in April.
No, let's start with the first 15%.
Daniel, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you for spending 2 hours of the public holiday with us this morning, explaining and talking to the people. Chris Amolo says, congratulations, sir. I've listened to your responses and contributions. Well said, articulate, to the point. We need more people like you to be our leaders.
We commend you. We commend you.
Thank you.
Unasimama kiti gani mheshimiwa 2027?
None, never. I love my peace.
2027.
I love my peace.
He says this now.
Angela as well. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, guys. Absolutely been
birthday.
fantastic. Thank you.
Utapewa lita mbili ya mafuta na bwana.
By the way, my birthday. Ati lita mbili peke.
Lita mbili.
That's a 1 month supply.
City, take us away with the day's proverb.
Anyone who sees beauty and does not look at it will soon be poor.
Anyone who sees beauty and does not look at it, very soon they'll be poor.
Most certainly, you'll be poor.
Within which context? You said again. That's a proverb from which country?
This is your favorite word for today.
Yes,
context.
it's a proverb from Benin.
Benin.
But the beauty of proverbs is that it allows you that latitude of interpreting it as you see fit.
And I'm a lawyer by training, so if you interpret it within
is this where this comes from?
within the Nairobi context, that will mean something totally different, and actually the outcome will be very different.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newsround. Dennis Aseto.